He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place show yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great locals, CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You can always interact with me on the good old cesspool of Twitter, on Instagram. I'm always straight flexing at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Michael Samter and Pat Boyle rocking and rolling with me as we take you all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Okay, let's start with two enormous storylines from Week 7 in the NFL that we just saw yesterday on Sunday. The Buffalo Bills can no longer be trusted, and the Baltimore Ravens have now entered into the Zach Gelb Show circle of trust. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills. That is an embarrassing performance yesterday by Buffalo. And you go into New England, and I don't want to hear New England, right, with their history, and it's Gillette Stadium, and it's a divisional game. That's a bunch of bull crap. That's what it is, if we're just being honest. The Patriots are not a good team. They are a bad football team this year, and the Buffalo Bills continuously are the most frustrating and inconsistent team in the NFL this season. And when you watch the Buffalo Bills, and it really, the first game of the season set the tone for them. When you go up against the Jets, Aaron Rodgers has the Achilles injury 4 plays into the season, and you couldn't win that game. So a game like that sets the tone, but you think, all right, lose one game, first game of the season, that stuff happens. Then you have 2 performances up against the Raiders and the Commanders. Whoop-de-damn-do. You get the victories and you blow them out. But Buffalo teased everyone. Buffalo teased everyone in that game a few weeks ago, right in the start of October, where they're going up against the Miami Dolphins, where the Dolphins come in soaring, the Dolphins come in, they're the talk of the league, and Buffalo absolutely dominated them for 60 minutes, where Stephon Diggs had 3 touchdowns, Josh Allen's looking like an MVP, and that defense was dominant up against the high-octane explosive offense of the Miami Dolphins, where they won the game 48-20. And ever since then, it looks like that was the apex for the Buffalo Bills season. Because after that, you tell me the nonsense, and it's always excuses with Buffalo. Oh, they were jet lag in London going up against the Jaguars. Stop it. What was the excuse against the Giants when the offense did nothing and the Giants defense isn't good, and the Giants almost won that game in Buffalo with Tyrod Taylor as the quarterback? Oh, Brian Daboll, though, knows the Buffalo Bills, so you knew that was going to be a close game. It just keeps on, even when they win, we make excuses for this team. And yesterday, you're up against the Pats. You don't even show up early. You make Mac Jones look like a stud, and we know that's not the case. And this Patriots team, which was lifeless, which was dead, which was a football team that before the game, and I think this was coming from Robert Kraft, they have to call up Ian Rappaport and say, oh, yeah, by the way, Bill Belichick got a long-term extension before the season started. So people would stop wondering, is this going to be the final year for Bill Belichick at one Patriot place? And you let that Patriot team that has no offensive line, has no legitimate weapons in the pass game, their defense, they're without their 2 best defensive players in Christian Gonzalez and Matthew Judon. You allow that football team to beat you? And they were up by 12. The Pats were up by 12. And at least Buffalo came back, but they teased you once again because once they took the lead, they allowed a big play to Ramondre Stevenson, and then the Patriots move it right down the field. They originally had Pop Douglas in the end zone, and it was a bad play design where the receiver was too small. They go right back to the well the next play, and Mike Gesicki and Mac Jones. Think about that image. If you're a Bills fan, this is the image of your season. Mac Jones and Mike Gesicki dancing on your grave in the end zone. That's pathetic. Mac Jones and Mike Gesicki should be celebrating nothing, absolutely nothing this year. Because that football team that I watch each and every week in the Patriots is a bunch of garbage this year. And you allow those two guys, Mike Gesicki and Mac Jones, who've looked horrible against every other team in the NFL, have a party at your expense. Buffalo has to do some serious soul searching. There was a reason going into this season why everyone was out on the Buffalo Bills. And shame on me for thinking, oh, maybe all that negativity, maybe all that criticism could actually be positive for Buffalo. Because last year, everyone was in on the Buffalo Bills. You couldn't find someone that didn't pick the Bills a year ago before the season started to go to the Super Bowl and win it. And they got embarrassed. They got emasculated. They got destroyed up against the Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs. And this offseason, it was a mess. This offseason, there was a bunch of questions. And I thought to myself in a stupid fashion, maybe all that negativity, maybe all that pressure being against Buffalo and everyone going elsewhere will wake up the Bills. And when the Bills are backed into a corner, maybe they'll show up. But this team just doesn't have enough pop. This team doesn't have enough sizzle. And I understand losing Matt Milano's big. Losing Tre'Davious White is big. But I've seen teams get decimated with injuries and still find a way to hoist a Lombardi trophy. The Patriots won a Super Bowl without Rob Gronkowski. The Eagles lost their quarterback, their star offensive lineman, their star linebacker, a special teams ace, and still won a Super Bowl. So don't make it out to be, even though they're big losses, that this team should look this pathetic up against the Patriots because you don't have Tre'Davious White and you don't have Matt Milano. And Buffalo, they need a spark. Buffalo needs something quickly. And from now until next week, when the trade deadline is quickly approaching, as we're already about to enter week 8 of the NFL season after it wraps up tonight, Buffalo needs to do something. And Buffalo needs to do something on the offensive side of the ball. I don't care what the reports say. I don't care what the speculation says. If Buffalo sits on their hands and if Brandon Beane doesn't do anything from now until the trade deadline, I don't even know if the Bills will make the playoffs. That's the direction we're trending with. I don't even know if the Bills will make the playoffs. But this team right now, they are dull, they are pedestrian, they are pathetic, and they are inconsistent. And that Miami game, it was like champagne, pop the champagne, praise Buffalo. And this team really exhaled. Where in their last 3 games, they lost to Jacksonville, they lost to the Patriots, and they were lucky to beat a bad football team in the Giants. Brandon Beane, you need to be aggressive. Brandon Beane, you need to save this season, and you better pick up the phone and get a deal done with either the Giants or with either the Tennessee Titans. You need to. You need to go get Derrick Henry. You need to go get Saquon Barkley, because right now, you're asking Josh Allen to be Superman. You're asking Josh Allen to do everything. And it's really a problem for the Bills, because if you ask Josh Allen to do everything, inevitably a mistake will happen. Inevitably something will go wrong. And I know they've tried the running back position. They've tried to run the football with James Cook. He's been too inconsistent. Last year you had an opportunity, a golden opportunity. Remember, Brandon Beane has Carolina Panthers connections. You could have traded for Run CMC Christian McCaffrey. Instead, the 49ers did that, and it's looking great for them. You can't make the same mistake twice here. You need to give up your draft capital to salvage this Super Bowl window of the Buffalo Bills. Because I thought going into this season, the Bills would never be able to do anything to make me get all back in on them in the regular season, because ultimately it would come down to the postseason And can they get that monkey off their back? But most of us thought, even questioning Buffalo, they would still make the playoffs. With what I've seen through the first 7 weeks, and this team being a 4-3 team, the playoffs aren't a lock. The playoffs aren't a given. And I'm really concerned about the Buffalo Bills. Now the regular season means something. I thought this regular season was going to be meaningless for the Buffalo Bills. But they got to go make a move, and they got to go impress the next few weeks, because you got the Buccaneers on the horizon. You got the Bengals on the horizon. You should be able to take care of business against the Broncos. You play the Jets, who already beat you earlier in the year. Then you got the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Chargers, and the Patriots and the Dolphins. And then we're in January and the season's over. That's a tough schedule. The Bills need help. The Bills need help in a big way. And it could come from Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley. But this team is no longer a team, even in a year where the NFL is wide open. Whenever you latch on to a team in the AFC, they stumble. But even in a year where this is wide open, I can't sit here and tell you anything's going to be different with the Buffalo Bills. Why should I expect so? They've had good teams the last few years. They've had, at times, elite teams. What I'm seeing this year, it's a poor offensive line. It's an inconsistent run game. Stephon Diggs is too emotional. And you have a quarterback in Josh Allen that you're saying, here you go, we paid you, do everything. In a team sport, when you rely on one player to do everything, it doesn't work. And what makes yesterday so bad for Buffalo is the opponent you were going up against. This isn't the Patriots of 20 years. This is the Patriots in a miserable spot with no hope, no optimism. And they looked competent yesterday. Mac Jones had 130-something passer rating. He threw for 270-something yards. And he moved the ball at ease, up and down the field against the Buffalo Bills, who had another blunder. Now, on the other side, the Baltimore Ravens. They were a team heading into this season. I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. I did not believe in the Baltimore Ravens. And it was because they've been a group that have just been derailed by injuries the last 2 years. What Lamar Jackson did yesterday up against the talk of the league and the Detroit Lions is the most impressive thing that I saw in week 7 of the NFL season. Because Lamar Jackson and the Ravens sent the message yesterday that they're a force to be reckoned with as long as their quarterback is healthy. That throw that Lamar Jackson made is a video game type of play where he was running around, extending the play, stops on a dime right by the right sideline, and fires the ball to Nelson Aguilar for a touchdown. That was awesome. That was an MVP type of performance yesterday from Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. 21-27, 357 yards through the air, 3 passing touchdowns, and oh yeah, by the way, 9 carries for 36 yards and a rushing score. They didn't only beat Detroit, they dominated Detroit. That game was over at halftime when it was 28-0. And everyone in the AFC North, which is the toughest division in football so far, everyone's been sleeping on the Baltimore Ravens. And here they are at 5-2. We know Harbaugh's a good coach. You know they got a good defense. And you know Lamar Jackson is one of the more electrifying and valuable players in the NFL. And Baltimore sent a statement yesterday to the NFL. Everyone's going to talk about Detroit. No one's going to talk about us. And we are a force to be reckoned with this year. And I'll go as far to say this. Through 7 weeks, Kansas City's the best team. Kansas City's the best team, just looking at the AFC, and I think they're the best team in the NFL right now. But if you want to ask me who is the second best team in the AFC through 7 weeks, how can't you go Baltimore? I have to go Baltimore. Dolphins, they haven't beat anyone. You look at the Bills, clearly if you listen to the last 10 minutes, they can't be trusted. The Bengals, let's see what they do coming off this bye week 3-3 with 2 tough opponents against the 49ers, and I thought was going to be a tough game up against the Buffalo Bills. The Chargers, forget about it, they suck, and Brandon Staley needs to be fired. Jacksonville, I could believe in Jacksonville, but I think Baltimore is more ready to win now. And it's about one individual. because that guy, Lamar Jackson, as long as he could stay healthy, he makes plays. He makes explosive plays, and he makes your jaw drop about 6 or 7 times throughout the game. Give me a team that you could trust. Give me a team that you're out on after 7 weeks of the NFL season. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. I could trust the Baltimore Ravens. I could no longer trust the Buffalo Bills. Take your phone calls on the other side. Plus, we'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio in the news brief. Off and running. Very busy Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Legendary NFL on CBS broadcaster Ian Eagle here with us.
You're a natural iconoclast. I've known that about you from way back when in your teen years. So none of this is surprising, and it's what makes you an excellent talk show host.
Yeah, Skip Bayless Gelb just called me. That's what people say these days.
Hot take, hot take.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I just saw that the NFL announced that the Hard Knocks in-season team this year is actually going to be the Miami Dolphins, where I'll watch that. Hard Knocks recently, I think, has turned more into a better product on social media. And when you sit down and when you watch the entire hour episode, it gets a little boring, especially since the teams control all of it. The Jets were fine this year. The Lions 2 years ago were fine. The Cowboys were boring 3 years ago. Really, the last great team on Hard Knocks, and it doesn't always translate to great success on the field, let me be clear and have that distinction, were the Cleveland Browns. When you had Hugh Jackson fighting up against Todd Haley, Bob Wiley with the stretching and the World War messages and kind of lectures. You know, Bob Wiley, he texts me about once every other week. And I get these inspirational messages from Bob Wiley and these hilarious memes. He is one of the funniest people I've ever interacted. And you had that also contrived fake speech from Jarvis Landry in the wide receiving room just to try to go viral. The Browns were the last team to really make a dent into being an intriguing Hard Knocks team, but the Dolphins are. Because Mike McDaniel's a wild card. He invites you into your home. He'll say anything. Sometimes you have no clue what the heck he's even trying to say. You have the personality of Tyreek Hill. You have the storyline of Tua Tagovailoa. And you have a good Dolphins team. You know, this is not a crappy team. I know the Dolphins lost last night, and they haven't beat anyone of great significance where you go ooh and ah with the Miami Dolphins. But they put up a ton of points. And they're going to be a team that can absolutely win the AFC East. They should win the AFC East this year. And they're an actual force in the AFC. So I will watch Hard Knocks in season with the Miami Dolphins. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Jordan in Calgary. First up on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Jordan, what's happening?
So I think the problem with the Buffalo Bills is partially on coaching and partially on Josh Allen's inconsistent play. I think the biggest thing is like you have a super athletic quarterback, and I think pretty much anyone can agree with that. And there's like been no designed quarterback runs for the guy. I know that it seems like they're trying to make him run less this year, but I don't even know it's necessarily like James Cook has been inconsistent. I think that James Cook has come in and done his job, but I think the problem is the passing game isn't really keeping the Bills on the field. So I think that they should maybe try and trade for disgruntled Davante Adams.
Well, I don't think they'd trade Davante Adams, the Raiders, in season. And also, then you have to worry if Stephon Diggs would be happy about that. But, Jordan, I think you make a good point in terms of the Bills don't have an identity on offense. Because going into this offseason, you heard the quotes from Brandon Beane. They said Josh Allen has to protect himself more and knows how to have to give up on a play, and they wanted to run him less. But once again, like James Cook is a fine option. James Cook is solid. But I don't know if he's ready to be the running back that this team needs, where they could say, we'll give the ball to you 20 times a game. He showed that against the Commanders and against the Raiders. But with the team that's ready to win now, I need a back that actually has some clout in this league and actually has a track record of a, no doubt about it, lethal running back. And Derrick Henry would be great. He would be great for this team, and you would have no choice but to hand the ball off to Derrick Henry more. Because the Bills just don't know what they want to do in offense. And McDermott, his butt should be on the hot seat. Ever since they lost Daboll, this offense has gone backwards. But just because you lose a coordinator, it doesn't mean your team should regress this much. It doesn't. I'm not saying it's not important. But the great players, the great teams, they are used to losing coordinators because teams want to replicate what they have built. And to the Bills' credit, people have wanted to replicate in the GM department with Joe Shane, in an offensive coordinator department in Brian Daboll, what the Bills have built. But now, you got to take this the next step forward. Instead, they're taking a step backwards. And it's because they have not figured out what they want their offense to look like. Because they're telling you, we don't want Josh to do everything. But when push comes to shove, they make Josh do everything. So it's one thing to say, we want to protect Josh more. We want to take the ball out of his hands more. He needs to know when to throw the ball away more. Then go invest in your running game. And go get me a solidified back in this league, whether that's Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley, who, regardless reports are, I would imagine, if you give up enough, both Tennessee and also New York would be willing to part ways with their running backs, both in the final years of their deal. Let's update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
After an entire week of getting a lot of love, especially from yours truly, the Detroit Lions face planted. Here is Jared Goff on their blowout loss to the Baltimore Ravens.
We've been through a whole lot worse than this. This is a tough game. You know, we got our butts kicked, but this group's had a lot of adversity, and this is kind of our first taste of getting kicked in the teeth this year. And yeah, we need to respond the right way and show up, whatever it is, Wednesday, whenever we come back, and make sure we're ready to go.
Yeah, it was a horrible loss. And you look at their wins this year. They beat Kansas City. I don't want to sound like Mike Tirico and put an asterisk on it, but it was without Chris Jones. It was without Travis Kelce. You lose to Seattle at home in overtime. You beat Atlanta. You beat Green Bay. You beat Carolina. Give them credit. They beat Tampa Bay. That's a solid football team. But with everyone stroking you for the entire week and everyone saying, all righty, here comes the Lions. Zach Gelb leading the charge on national radio. They already have the Division I first division title since 1993. They haven't won a playoff game since 1991. They're going to win multiple playoff games this year. You get popped right in the mouth. Now, this is a humbling moment for the Lions, and it shows you why home field advantage is so important for them, because a little wind, you're outside the dome yesterday, and that offense got derailed. But the Lions are still going to win a ton of games. They are. You have the Raiders. You have the Chargers. Still 2 games with the Bears, the Packers, the Saints, the Broncos, the Vikings twice. Like, their toughest game remaining is against the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. Yeah, this Lions team still going to win 12, 13 games, and they have a chance to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. And that number 1 seed for the Lions in the NFC is the most important out of any other teams because it ensures that they're playing their games in their home building inside a dome, which is very important for Jared Goff. Jonathan Allen has been with the Commanders for about 7 years. All these experiences losing. Even when they got to the playoffs and they won their division, they were a below 500 team. After the Commanders only put up a measly 7 points yesterday against the Giants, Jonathan Allen, who's a captain, star defensive player in this league, clearly voiced his frustration with the team.
Does it get frustrating when that?
Yes, it does. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this bullshit. It's been 7 years of the same. Tired of this.
What can you do now going forward to get it turned around?
Get our minds right and get ready to play Philadelphia.
So I've interviewed Jonathan Allen before. He's very mild-mannered. He's like a very normal dude. He doesn't usually show that much emotion publicly. But when you constantly just lose, and you know you're going up against an inferior team in the Giants who are starting Tyrod Taylor, you can't lose that game. And the offensive line right now for the Commanders is the biggest problem. And Sam Howell is on pace to be sacked more than any quarterback in the history of the NFL in one season. Let's go to Andy Reid. Taylor Swift in the building. Patrick Mahomes, his wife, Brittany Mahomes, and Taylor Swift coming up with that friendship handshake, which is pretty damn cool after the Chiefs just kept on scoring against the Chargers. And it was National Tight Ends Day yesterday, and Travis Kelce put on a big performance. Here's Andy Reid on his Star Tight Ends Day.
Kelce keeps getting better with time. Taylor can stay around all she wants.
That's great. Andy Reid, he's living life. For years, he was winning games in Philadelphia, but never won the big one. Then goes to Kansas City, turn that franchise, turn that organization around, and then gets Patrick Mahomes. And we always wondered if Andy Reid would ever win a Super Bowl. Now it's how many is he going to win? Already has 2 under his big belt. And on National Tight Ends Day, Travis Kelce, 12 receptions, 179 yards, and a touchdown. Everyone stroking you. Oh, jeez. That was quick. Let's go to Tua Tagovailoa on the criticism of the Dolphins after their poor performance on Sunday Night Football.
I don't think we listen to the outside noise in regards to how people feel about our team. I think the most important thing is the guys in the locker room sticking together and continuing to go. There's a lot of football to be played. A lot of football. It's a long season.
So we all know the Dolphins are explosive. The Dolphins are a good team. And they have a chance this year to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. But I say this all the time. There's a difference between a good team, a very good team, and a great team. There's few great teams this year in the NFL. The Dolphins have that potential, but it is fair to say, who have you beaten? Who have you defeated? You beat the Chargers. The Chargers stink. You beat the Patriots. They stink. Sure, you scored 70. That's always impressive, but it was up against the Broncos, who are one of the worst defenses in the league. You lose to Buffalo, your first big test. You beat the Giants. You beat the Panthers. Both those teams stink. And then in your biggest test against the Eagles, you lost. So that Bills and Eagles performances for the Dolphins makes everyone just be skeptical. And we know they're very good. We'll know they'll be a playoff team. They'll probably win the AFC East. But can they take it to the next level? And they have a golden opportunity to show that they can take it to the next level in 2 weeks when the Miami Dolphins go to Germany and do battle up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's a game that should have been played in Kansas City, but the NFL are a bunch of selfish pigs, and they're like, oh, we got to expand the game. Why would we want Tyreek Hill to make his return to Kansas City and actually appease the fans here in America? But that's Roger Goodell. He's all about the straight cash, homie. All righty, Bill Belichick got his 300th win yesterday. So I guess a reporter asked him afterwards on what it means to him for his 300th win. I'm going to take a guess. This was Bill. You know, I'm not focused on individual accomplishments. It's just a good team win, and it's all about the team, T-E-A-M. Let's hear from the hoodie, Bill Belichick.
Bill, what is your reaction to becoming the third head coach with 300 wins behind Don Shula and George Halas?
I mean, it's great. I'm really more focused on, our team in this year, and worry about that later. Thank you.
So easy with Belichick.
The thank you threw me off, though. That was actually him showing appreciation, like, hey, I know it's cool, so thank you.
Well, that's him. I could recognize the voice asking the question. It's Mike Reese, who's a tremendous reporter. That's like, little Mike Reese, thank you. I appreciate you, bringing up my accomplishment, but I'm in character on this podium. I'll never take the individual success. Also in the midst of a 2-win season for the Patriots, I don't think you want to be jumping up and down there if you're Bill Belichick. Joe Shad, who used to cover college football, now for like the last decade has been covering the NFL with the Dolphins. Man, can you whine more? This is his tweet last night. The tush push is not a legitimate football play. It's not how football was meant to be played. It's also lame and can cause injuries. Nobody except Eagles fans will miss it once it's banned in the offseason. So here's my reaction to Joe Shad. I don't usually like to accuse people of just doing things for clicks. But this is Joe Shad knowing that no one's going to read his article after the game because the Dolphins stunk. And Miami is a very fair-weather fan base. So he needs to now attack the Eagles fan. And he knows that he'll get dragged on Twitter. He'll get him a bunch of clicks and will drive people to his Twitter page, Instagram page, whatever it is. But come on. If the tush push was this big advantage where it should be outlawed, then every team should be running it. But when every other team runs it, they don't have success. So here is Nick Sirianni defending the tush push, which a lot of these networks, I guess they don't like the words tush push. They've now been calling it the brotherly shove, which I like tush push better, but here's Nick Sirianni.
Shoot, a lot of faith in that play because you've seen it, right? You've seen it across the league that people can't do it like we can do it. They can't do it like we can do it. And so I'm making my plug right there. Like, don't ban this play. Like, if everyone could do it, everybody would. Where's the camera? If everybody could do it, everybody would do it.
I love that guy. I have never done more of a 180 on a coach than I have with Nick Sirianni. His first year, he lost me with his flower analogies. And then all the guy does is win. Made the playoffs with Jalen Hurts that wild card year where they lose to Tampa Bay. Last year goes to the Super Bowl. He's really embraced the city of Philadelphia, and you would think he's from Philadelphia. Here's one of the biggest losers in college football, Dabo Swinney. We know all he's done has won for years, but he's such a sore loser now since things aren't going his way. Already has 3 losses on the season, and Dabo always puts his foot in his mouth. Like, if the guy would just lose and not speak, we would all leave Dabo Swinney alone. But I thought this was just stupid. And, you know, he just doesn't really get it, Dabo Swinney, when he was asked as a team employee, a psychiatrist.
Some coaches have employed sports psychiatrists. Have you ever done that?
Oh, we got him. We got him. He's probably on suicide watch right now. Yeah. We got him.
He's horrible with his words. Remember when he went after NIL and he was like, oh, yeah, we have name, image, and likeness. We're built off God's name, image, and likeness. Which you know he can't stand NIL, and I'm sure he can't even stand the team psychiatrist. And the thought about having a team psychiatrist, and then he goes out there and makes a suicide reference. Like, this guy is such low class. He's so arrogant, and usually his arrogance was hidden by winning. But now he doesn't know how to handle criticism. And look at the game. They had that game won up against Miami, and they choked it up. And remember his comments last week? Oh, maybe fans should jump off our bandwagon and we need to lose more to weed out the fans on the Clemson bandwagon. This guy's insufferable, and he'll never build Clemson back up because the guy doesn't know how to adapt with college football in the year of 2023. And finally, here is Greg Popovich trying to show some personality, actually, on Steve Kerr saying he's rejuvenated now with Victor Wembanyama being able to get coached by the great Greg Popovich.
What was I being rejuvenated from? Was I in a mental institution, or was I depressed and curled up in my bedroom or something?
Steve said it, and he knows you better than I do.
Steve's an ass.
I agree.
Okay.
I know that they're very friendly and they've known each other for a long time. But Pop calling Steve Kerr, hey, you know what there, is one of the all-time great lines and one of the all-time great Pop moments. And quite frankly, what I think agitated Pop there is he knows Steve Kerr was right. Because Pop kind of the last 3-4 years, I don't want to say he was irrelevant, but no one was talking about him outside of when is Pop going to retire. And now people expect that of Pop because you have this alien player, this one-on-one player in Victor Wembanyama. That's a news brief. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. We'll have our 3 college football takes next. If you're a Penn State fan, ooh, we're going to be talking about you when we return. And also, USC just choking it up once again in a big spot. Update time first. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the NFL trade deadline isn't until a couple of weeks from now, but the rich are about to get richer with the Eagles reportedly set to acquire Kevin Byard from the Titans in return for the 2-time Pro Bowler. They'll be sending Terrell Edmonds and a couple of late-round picks to Tennessee. The Vikings host the 49ers in the Monday night matchup. Christian McCaffrey expected to go despite being questionable with an oblique injury. Deebo Samuel is out. The Rangers and Astros have battled over the last 6 games, and it all comes down to tonight's winner-take-all Game 7. And the winner moves on to the World Series. Houston looking to get back and become the first team since the Yankees 23 years ago to repeat. Dusty Baker hands the ball to Christian Javier tonight.
He's in great shape. He trains a lot. The guy has a very slow heartbeat, he's been a big game pitcher for us.
Max Scherzer starts for Texas. He didn't look good at all in Game 3 in his first outing in more than a month. He did win Game 7 in Houston in 2019, leading the Nationals to their first championship. The Diamondbacks Phillies will lead off today's doubleheader with Game 6 of the NLCS and Aaron Nola and Merrill Kelly on the mound. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is Jim Rome. Have a strong take? Then I want to hear from you. Weekdays from 12 to 3 Eastern, right here on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio.
Sean Payton may be the biggest buffoon in the NFL right now because Sean Payton this offseason, he went after Nathaniel Hackett, and he said Nathaniel Hackett did one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the league. When you say that, it's a must-win when you go up against Nathaniel Hackett's offense. The Jets won the game up against the Denver Broncos, and that is as bad of a look as humanly possible for Sean Payton.
This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Let's get to 3 college football takes right now. And let's not even save the best for last. Let's dance on the grave of the Penn State Nittany Lions, who once again, in a big spot, James Franklin shows why he is a fraudulent football coach. He is a tremendous recruiter. But an in-game coach, he is miserable. He knows how to get the Maserati in the driveway, but he always leaves you with no gas left in the tank. And that's what Penn State has become. Penn State has become an empty program where they're all sizzle. They're all about their tradition, their passionate fan base. But when you judge them for what they do on the field, they don't win the big games. And James Franklin is now 3-16 against top 10 teams in his career as the head football coach of the Nittany Lions, and he's 0-10 on the road against top 10 teams. This guy just doesn't get the job done when it matters. And even when they won a Big Ten championship, it was empty. They didn't even get to the college football playoff. Whoop-de-damn-do. Last year, they won a Rose Bowl against Utah. You lost to Michigan, and you lost to Ohio State. And the same damn thing is happening again, where this is going to be a team at the end of the year that they're going to look like they're this great team. They're going to look like they're this dominant team. But in their big games, they already lost one to Ohio State. And guess who's coming to town in a few weeks? It's the Michigan Wolverines, where Jim Harbaugh won't even need to scout you legally or not for this game. You're going to have J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, Roman Wilson, and Colston Loveland, and they're going to dominate you at Happy Valley. Penn State fans love to say we are. Start saying we are never ready for the big moment, because that's what Penn State has become. They know how to get this team to look like a good team, but every time they're asked to be a good team up against great teams, they fail over and over and over again. And this guy, James Franklin, he thinks he's elite. He thinks his program is elite, but they're the farthest thing from elite. And all these great Penn State fans, they drink the Kool-Aid that this guy's trying to deliver you, and you fall for it every single year. Oh, Drew Allar's going to be great. Oh, this team is great. And up against Ohio State, who didn't even play their best brand of football, you couldn't win the game. Your defense was great. Your offense was pathetic. Here is James Franklin after the game. And this guy, whenever he loses, he always says something outlandish. This one just had me rolling over in tears and tears of laughter. Here's Coach Franklin.
I want to give Ohio State a ton of credit. I'm not sure. We'll watch the tape. I'm not sure if we didn't just watch 2 of the best teams in college football. Obviously, specifically on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, maybe on the defensive side of the ball, you're right, but not offensively. And, Coach, this is a 3-phase game. Your offense didn't convert a third down until late in the game. You guys were like 0 of 14, 0 of 15 at one point. So you can't tell me, oh, yeah, We had this great team. Oh, we may have just watched the two best teams in college football. What? Your offense won't beat anyone of significance if this continues. And you have that offensive performance up against Michigan? Pick the score even with your great defense. They'll beat you 45 to like 10. Give me a break, James Franklin. Now let's get to Alabama. I was not a believer in Alabama all year. And after week 2 at Texas, I go, okay, Alabama loses. Alabama with their tough schedule is going to lose one more game, and they'll be out of this. Now with the Brock Bowers injury, and it being uncertain if and when Brock Bowers is going to come back, Alabama showed yesterday or on Saturday that they're alive. Now, they still may get another loss, and there's never been a 2-loss team to make the college football playoff. But to be down to Tennessee 20-7 at halftime and to make it up all in the third quarter with explosive play after explosive play after explosive play and be up 24-20 entering the fourth quarter was damn impressive. It really was. And for the first time this season, Alabama actually impressed me on the offensive side of the ball against a good Tennessee team. We know their defense is dominant in Alabama, but that offense made a big statement. And Alabama, just when you thought they were dead, they pop right back up where it looked like they were on life support and were about to pull the plug on the Alabama season with it being 20-7 at halftime. And they made a dominant statement and said, we're not dead yet in the year of 2023. And finally, I've said this for years, but now it's starting to be proven true. Lincoln Riley is an overrated coach. That doesn't mean he's horrible. That doesn't mean he's a miserable head football coach. He's a very, very, very good head football coach. But in big moments, he doesn't show up. With Heisman Trophy winners, Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, and a Heisman Trophy finalist in Jalen Hurts, 0-3 in the college football playoff. He scurries off to USC. Last year with the Heisman Trophy winner, lost to Utah twice, couldn't win the Pac-12 championship. And this year, with Caleb Williams, who's going to be the number 1 overall pick, they got blown out with no offensive performance up against Notre Dame and up against another backup quarterback, Cam Rising out for the year with Utah. You can't beat Utah. And he's arrogant, Lincoln Riley. He trusts Alex Grinch too much, the defensive coordinator. That burns him over and over again. Lincoln Riley can compile wins, but he doesn't get the big wins. And to not get to a college football playoff with Caleb Williams is embarrassing. And also, it's very disappointing, and it puts him in a conversation. Either USC or LSU are the two most disappointing teams in college football because both had national championship aspirations, and we're not even in November yet, and both of those teams won't sniff the CFB. Here is Lincoln Riley after the game talking about expectations that are created, but not by himself in his own program.
We don't come in every single week talking about winning a national championship, going to playoffs, and I don't know where that narrative starts. You come in every single week trying to fight your tail off to go play well and win a ball game. We've won a hell of a lot more here than we've lost. Are we satisfied at all sitting here at 6-2? Of course we're not.
Well, Coach, where does the narrative start? July, when you got the job of 2022 and you did an interview before the start of your first season with Bill Plaschke, you said the expectation is to win the championship. We didn't come here to play for second. That's a coach that doesn't want to take it on the chin after losing a game and knowing that the rest of the year he's coaching for really nothing because he knows what the standard is. He knows what he has to deliver, and that's a national championship. And with the best player in college football for the last 2 seasons, he hasn't even gotten an invite to the dance because his teams haven't been good enough. And that's a reflection of a coach that, once again, like Franklin, good, can get talent, but when the game is on the line up against the elite teams, they don't get the job done. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. The Cleveland Browns have a problem, and it's Deshaun Watson. Because you're banking on Deshaun Watson to be this great quarterback, to be this top 7 quarterback in the NFL that we've seen from him at times when he was the quarterback of the Houston Texans. And you know how elite Deshaun Watson was back when he was the quarterback when Clemson actually won some games when he was the QB with Dabo Swinney over with the Clemson Tigers. But the last 3 weeks, the Cleveland Browns have been without Deshaun Watson. They were non-competitive against the Baltimore Ravens. And then not that this is just P.J. Walker, because P.J. Walker hasn't been playing great. He's been able to manage the game up against knowing in his back pocket his defense has not only been great, but his defense has been elite. And Myles Garrett, if it wasn't for TJ Watt, would probably easily win Defensive Player of the Year this season in the NFL. Like what Myles Garrett did yesterday. I remember earlier in the season, he was running around from right tackle to left tackle, right tackle to left tackle. And the offense, it was up against Tennessee when Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback, had to take a delay of game because they were that intimidated by Myles Garrett. But yesterday, to have 2 strip sacks, to also block a field goal where he just jumps up right over the lineman and blocks the kick, it was spectacular what Myles Garrett did up against the Indianapolis Colts. And I get it. The last 2 weeks, as easily as the Cleveland Browns defeated San Francisco and Indianapolis, you could argue they could have just as easily lost both those games. If Jake Moody does what a kicker's supposed to do and makes that field goal, the Cleveland Browns lose to the 49ers. If the refs didn't want to ruin the game yesterday and screw the Indianapolis Colts, they lose that game to Indianapolis as well. But if you're a Browns fan, you don't need to sit there and say, oh, we got lucky, or, oh, we got a break, because for the entirety of your fandom, you haven't gotten the calls. You haven't gotten the breaks. Everything that could go wrong has go wrong, and there's a reason why you see that photo each and every year of that jersey where you just add like 40 names of quarterbacks that have played for the Cleveland Browns in the last 20 years. So I'm not going to rain on the parade of Cleveland Browns fans and try to take away from their wins with further discussing Jake Moody or further discussing the bad officiating. The Cleveland Browns are 4-2. And as what Bill Parcells once said, you are what your record says you are. But being 4-2 and Deshaun Watson being hurt, and I know he started yesterday, was dealing with the shoulder injury. We thought he suffered a concussion. He clears concussion protocol. And I give credit to Kevin Stefanski, who every Browns fan wants to run this dude out of town. Stefanski did what he thought was in the best interest of his player. Where, yeah, you got cleared from concussion protocol, but I don't think you're healthy enough to go in. Because remember last year, Tua Tagovailoa up against the Buffalo Bills, he got cleared. They told you that was a back injury. We all know what we saw. It was a head injury. And I don't know the specifics of it. And there's clearly ways that you could fail concussion protocol and you get held out of the game. But it may not be as tough as what we actually think it is. Because remember the team doctors, I know there's an independent neurologist that's employed. But if you leave the decision in the hands of the player, 9.9 times out of 10, the player's going to say, I'm ready to return. And yesterday, it was one of those moments where, yeah, you're cleared to return, but the coach knew in his heart and in his gut, it wasn't the right thing to put his player back on the field. And now we don't even know when we're going to see Deshaun Watson next, because this is going to be day to day. This is going to be week to week. And I don't know if we're going to see him coming up on Sunday up against the Seattle Seahawks. But either way, the more the Browns win without Deshaun Watson, the more it doesn't make Deshaun Watson look good. And Deshaun Watson, the last, 2 years in Cleveland, 6 games at the end of last year, it was clunky. It was sloppy. And to start this season, when he's been on the field, Deshaun Watson has made throws at times that makes him look like Carson Wentz. Like that interception he had earlier in the season where he just tossed the ball up, or it wasn't even interception, he just threw it backwards. It's like, what are you doing? And last year, the rust was a valid excuse because he was annoyed at the Texans, wasn't playing with the Texans. Then we found out the allegations off the field, and they were really ugly. But as you know in the NFL, if a player's cleared, or if a player's not charged, or if a player's not in jail, teams will say, yeah, we care about off the field. We care about women. We care about this. We care about that. But in reality, if a football team thinks you could help them win games, they're going to pull the trigger on that player over and over again. And that's what the Browns did. Not only did they give up a king's ransom for Deshaun Watson, they also then gave him a fully guaranteed contract. So in title and in money, he's the guy in Cleveland. But the last 2 weeks, when P.J. Walker's playing and he's just managing the game and not doing anything spectacular, like P.J. Walker's not going to take you to the playoffs. P.J. Walker's not going to be this great quarterback. And trust me, I've seen more P.J. Walker than anybody because I'm a Temple Owl. I covered him. I was a college classmate with him. P.J. Walker, it's amazing how this guy's in the NFL, if I'm being honest with you, and is actually playing games and making a name for himself in the NFL. But the more and more he wins, regardless if it's P.J. Walker or not, it's not a good reflection of Deshaun Watson. And every Browns fan right now has to be wondering, was Deshaun Watson worth it? With all the backlash, with all the criticism, which was rooted from a good spot with people saying, this guy shouldn't be playing, this guy shouldn't be getting a fully guaranteed contract, it's not right. But then on the field, you know the Haslam family is expecting a result from Deshaun Watson. And it's one thing where it's 6 games last year, and it's you got to knock off the rust. But then this year, there's been injuries. Injuries are an unfortunate part of this game. But when he's been healthy, and I used to be a big Deshaun Watson fan, I haven't seen a quarterback that makes me say he's worth $230 million guaranteed, or he's worth all the first-round picks that we gave up. And Cleveland fans have to be wondering, is he the guy? Now, in the natural progression of the way that this goes, if it gets that bad consistently with Deshaun Watson, eventually Kevin Stefanski will be out of a job. But based off what we've seen through the first 6 games of the season, Kevin Stefanski doesn't deserve to be fired. This guy has lost Nick Chubb, who is their most valuable player. He hasn't had his quarterback in Deshaun Watson. And the last 2 weeks, you beat San Francisco and you beat Indianapolis. More value on the San Francisco game. And Indianapolis, it was a fun game yesterday. So if Stefanski, I don't know, goes 9-8 this year, and Watson barely plays and they miss the playoffs, you really going to fire this guy? But you know Browns fans are going to be annoyed because Browns fans expect to make the playoffs this year. And if you don't, someone's going to have to pay. And it ain't going to be Deshaun Watson right now because you can't move the guy. But really, you look at the 2 quarterbacks that were dealt for a king's ransom and then got paid a king's ransom. Russell Wilson has been atrocious with the Broncos. You know Sean Payton is done with him. He's done. It's either going to be at the end of this year or a year from now. But we are entering the final stages of Russell Wilson in that quick tenure in Denver. And so far, if you go back to the Browns and say, would you want a do-over? They'd be foolish to say no. They would be foolish if they said, nah, we still believe in Deshaun Watson. Because he's not worth the headache. We know the allegations off the field, they were horrific. And on the field, and this may not be the best thing to say from a human standpoint, but how many times have we seen in the NFL? You could be accused of awful things off the field. It's a human emotion, though, when you watch a player score for your team to cheer. If Deshaun Watson provided moments of joy for Browns fans on the field, a lot of people would forget about what happened off the field, as horrible as that is to say. But it's just the truth. We've seen it over and over again. But Deshaun Watson hasn't provided any Browns fan with a reason to cheer so far. And the more and more they win without him, or if he comes back this week against Seattle and they lose the game, it's a poor reflection on Deshaun Watson. And sometimes when you get out of rhythm with how much of a rhythm you need in the NFL, you may never be able to get it back. And that's the thing I'm starting to wonder with Deshaun Watson. Is he ever going to be able to be the player that he once was? Because even in that final year where he was playing in Houston, they didn't have a lot of wins. They had like 4 or 5 wins. But he was putting up prodigious numbers with nothing around him. And we've seen him with the Texans get to the second round of the playoffs. We've seen him have a lot of success in the NFL. But after this year, your career is really on life support. Because I don't think we're going to be talking positively about Deshaun Watson at the end of this year. Maybe it gives you a little glimpse of hope at the end of the season. But next year, all the spotlight is going to be on you. Because now you can blame the injuries. But after these 2 years, I don't want to hear rust anymore being used as an excuse. And we start to distance ourselves. It's like 3-4 years since we've seen Deshaun Watson be a great player. Let me ask you this, Pat Boyle. Because I know, Pat, I guess you could say you're a confused Browns fan, where you used to be a Cleveland Browns fan, and then once they acquired Deshaun Watson, right, you were done with the football team?
Correct.
But even though you say you're done with the football team, that was the team you grew up rooting for. You, still monitor them, right? You still watch them.
No.
Not at all?
Every Sunday I'm Red Zone. I don't pay any more or less attention to the Browns than I would, let's say, the Seahawks.
So last week when Jake Moody misses that kick, in a moment of Pat Boyle's silence, like us, you watching the game by yourself, if we were to just put a fly on the wall on the Boyle residence, you're not jumping for joy? You're not going crazy?
No, you would have saw me punching air because I had the Niners money line in a parlay.
Really?
Yes.
So I'm shocked that you could just remove yourself from a team and just not have still the emotional connection. Like Samter, he's a Jet fan, and what's wrong with you guys? He gave up on the Jets. He says he's no longer a Jets fan. Now he's a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. You two guys, you need fan therapy here. You guys need help to try to how to reconcile with your old teams here instead of just ditching them.
The thing for me is working locally here, having to cover or watch at least more so the Giants and the Jets and keep up with them constantly. That was what detracted the Browns fandom. And then once they signed Deshaun Watson, I was like, all right, now you gave me an excuse to officially not care about the team that much anymore.
Okay, but objectively, looking at this now as a neutral analyst that you are with no fandom anymore to the here we go, Brownies, here we go. Hoo, hoo. What are your views on Deshaun Watson? Because he looks shot as a great football player, ever becoming a great football player again. And I know there's still that ambiguity and that ominous cloud hanging over the Browns organization. Well, we haven't really been able to see him much on the field. Taking your emotions and the way that this organization has worn you down, do you think there's any hope if you had to talk independently to Browns fans for the future with Deshaun Watson at quarterback?
I would say just knowing what his history is as a quarterback, with his time with the Texans, I'd say, yes, there's hope. But right now, he has been mediocre. He's been average, and he's also been unavailable. He's hurt again. They are once again monitoring the shoulder. He got hurt yesterday, only played, 3 series? So you look at the 3 full games he's played this year. He was horrendous against Cincinnati, and the Browns defense totally won them that football game.
Oh, absolutely.
He was good against Pittsburgh in moments, and then also had 2 big-time terrible turnovers.
Yeah.
And, couldn't hold on to the football. And then he had one of the best games he's ever played in his career against the Tennessee Titans, where he made every single pass, moved down the field with ease. So you have gotten, the ultimate mixed bag. And then now all of a sudden the last 3 weeks, he's hurt, he comes back, and he gets hurt again. So I would say there's no short-term hope in terms of the next 2-3 weeks, because I don't think he's going to be 100%. He might not be 100% the rest of this year,
Yeah.
But I would say long-term, perhaps there is still hope.
But without context, if I told you that the last great season a player had was 2020, missed all of 2021, 2022 in 6 games had 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and then this year has been hurt, and when he's been on the field, it's been 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. If I didn't tell you the context, if I didn't tell you who the person was in his previous history, you would say, yes, that player's best days are behind him, without question. And that's what we're seeing now with Deshaun Watson. Because in 2020, he was great. 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. The team was dog crap. He had almost 5,000 yards passing, completing over 70% of his passes. But that was in 2020. We've seen 2021, 2022, and now 2023. And we're already at a point where there's no hope really for the rest of this season. And then we're expecting him 4 years removed to be great next year. I know he's still young, right? He's 28, just turned 28 in September. But I don't think there's hope that he's going to turn around because we're banking on what he was 3-4 years ago. And not everyone, right, is Geno Smith, where you basically take 10 years off and then you have a career-defining moment. So I don't think we're ever going to see a great version of Deshaun Watson again.
Okay. And as much as I would like to agree with you, I disagree. I still think that talent is there. And I think you saw it. Like if you watch, the Tennessee game, you see the talent is definitely still there. The thing is now, one, can you keep him in the right mindset and in the right space off the field? And also, can you then keep him healthy?
And also, can you win without Nick Chubb? Because Nick Chubb is done for the rest of the year. Who knows, unfortunately, because Nick Chubb's one of the best players in football. Coming off that injury, another major injury, if he's ever going to be able to return, you get paid all that money. You're supposed to carry a team. I can't sit here and say that Deshaun Watson's going to be able to carry this team for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
True. I think it's a mini miracle right now that they are 4-2, and they've got arguably the best, if not absolutely a top 3 defense to thank because of that. So I don't think there's a lot of weapons on this team right now. The receiving core, Amari Cooper's nice veteran receiver.
Solid.
Elijah Moore has some promise, never panned out as a Jet. But right now, with Chubb out for the year and Deshaun Watson has basically not played the last 3 games, the Brownies are 4-2. There's a lot to be optimistic about, if nothing else.
And Browns fans want to get rid of some of them. I hear this with Ken Carman and Anthony Lima, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. Some of them want to get rid of Kevin Stefanski even after being 4-2, which is just the definition of jackassery. All righty, we'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Will we see Arch Manning on the field anytime soon for Texas with the Quinn Ewers injury? We discuss next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio.
Ryan in Santa Barbara, I thought he was going to avoid me today after his 49ers didn't go down. What?
Come on, Zach.
What
Listen.
happened?
No,
What
here's the
happened?
bottom line. Don't talk. Don't talk. I guarantee the Niners will win the Super Bowl.
You lost. And your great quarterback, hold on. Your great quarterback, Brock Purdy, doesn't look like an MVP when Debo and McCaffrey are out. Ryan, you want to be me. You'll never be me. I can out-scream you any day of the week. Get off my show.
This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
You can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone all season long. You can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. So we do have Monday Night Football to wrap up Week 7 tonight. Ryan, San Francisco 49ers going up against the Minnesota Vikings. We'll see who the heck is actually going to play for the San Francisco 49ers tonight, but I don't think it matters. The 49ers should be able to win this game, but then yet again, you look around the rest of the NFL from some of these teams yesterday, and you go, oh, wow, that team lost with the talent that, like, the Bills have. How the heck do they lose to a team like the New England Patriots? So Monday Night Football coming up later this evening. You also got some baseball mixed in, too. We got a Game 7 where somehow the Rangers are starting Max Scherzer. I don't know why, but just when everyone criticizes that, watch Mad Max will have a vintage performance. I hope that's not the case. I actually want the Astros to win. Do you guys still hate the Astros, by the way? I know the Astros are so polarizing with the cheating scandal, with what they've been able to do since then, and with Correa no longer being there, and how great Altuve has been, buzzer or not. I do appreciate the greatness of the Houston Astros, and I also like that Dusty Baker got a championship last year. So the Astros don't annoy me anymore.
No, not me either. At this point, like as a Yankee fan, I was kind of pissed, and that was more like personal.
Yeah,
Same
because
thing
your
with
team
the Dodgers
stinks.
Because it felt like the Dodgers cheated us. But now the Astros.
The Astros, yeah.
But now the Astros have won and won consistently since the cheating scandal. And let's be honest, they weren't winning because of the cheating scandal either. It was just giving them an extra edge. This is a damn good team. So, like, I'm not pissed anymore. At this point, if they win again and they win another World Series after the scandal, you have to start looking at them as being an all-time dynasty-type team.
Yeah, and they still have to win another championship, like you're saying, because you got to get to 3 to be a dynasty. But as you've seen with other teams, when there's allegations, you just keep on winning. You just eventually sound like sour grapes if you still hold them to the allegations and then just ignore when it has been a level playing field, if you want to say, them keep on pumping out victories over and over and over again. And this is their 7th straight American League Championship Series. If I'm standing there still bitching and complaining about the allegations and the scandal of all that, I just feel like you sound like a bunch of sour grapes at this point.
And at the end of the day, think about how many of like the elite teams that we've seen over the past 2 decades or so that have had scandals around them. Your Patriots, scandals. And not that the Warriors had scandals, but the whole Kevin Durant thing, you bring in an all-time great. Right, there's just every great dynastic team over the past 15, 20 years has had some kind of controversy around them. Even my Yankees had controversies around them, how much money they were spending.
Steroids.
Roger
Clemens, roid rage.
And they even had their own cheating scandal with the watches and the videograph and all that stuff, them and the Red Sox. So it seems like really there's nothing above ground in sports these days anyway. So if you're going to win, you might as well cheat.
I still hate the Astros for
Can
what
we
it's
put
worth.
that on? Can we put that on a T-shirt? Say that line again that you just said, Samter.
If you're gonna win, you might as well cheat.
I think Samter would be the perfect spokesperson for that as well. Go ahead, Boyle.
No, I still hate them. I think they have a bunch of hateable players with a bunch of faces that are very punchable.
So that's why I think they're actually great for baseball.
They are.
Because they're polarizing. And baseball, for the most part, and I say this as a baseball fan and someone that loves baseball, it's become a very boring sport where the only time we talk about baseball is if some old person starts complaining, that player shouldn't have done a bat flip. Like stuff like that. And how dare someone celebrate? Or if there's a brawl, or if Shohei Ohtani does something, which we've never seen before. There hasn't been a lot of moments on the field that we're able to talk about in baseball. And here are the Astros in a World Series that could be up in the air, where like the Diamondbacks, they're a fun story, but I don't think they resonate nationally. The Phillies, they have a lot of great players, and that redemption factor could give you a little pop from losing the World Series to the Astros. The Rangers, they had a bunch of players in the All-Star game this year, but I don't have any reaction either way to the Rangers, really, outside of Max Scherzer, but that's just because I'm a Met fan and I can't stand Max Scherzer. So I do think the best thing for baseball would be to see a World Series rematch and to see the Astros go up against the Phillies. I won't bet against the Astros today, and I do think the Astros are going to win, but it does concern me that everyone's assuming, Boyle, that Max Scherzer, who has been a bad pitcher as of late, everyone's expecting that this guy's going to be a bum tonight, and it feels like everyone is on the Houston Astros.
Yeah, if he's got one final stand, if Max Scherzer has one great last postseason pitching appearance in him, you think it might come tonight. Once, like you said, when everybody thinks he's going to be crap because he was his last start and basically every postseason start he's had so far.
Or any big game, we're going back to last year with the Mets.
Yeah. But, yeah, I still think the Astros it's going to take a while for me, and I would say most people, to not hate the Astros anymore as a neutral fan of baseball because of the cheating. Like, this dynasty will have to end. They'll have to be bad for, 10 years again, and then they'll have to be good again for people to be like, oh, yeah, I don't not hate the Astros. Especially their bullpen. I think everybody in that bullpen has a punchable face, especially the closer. Presley, he looks like he cuts deli sandwiches for a living.
What's wrong with that? Why do you have to go after the people that cut deli sandwiches?
There's nothing wrong with it. He looks like he shouldn't be a closer for a team that's on the precipice of a World Series.
I'm hearing a lot of Evan Neal right now, right? Yeah. Going after the people who make your food. Like, what's the deal with that?
There's nothing wrong with people who work at a deli or cut sandwiches. It looks like Presley, though, should be doing that, not closing out baseball games.
So Boyle thinks he's a lion and we're a bunch of sheep, is what he's saying.
Not at all. I just said
that's what you're saying.
I don't like Ryan Presley, and I don't think he's very good.
Why? People that cut pastrami and people that cut, I'm not a big fan of turkey, but turkey or any kind of cold cuts, I love those people.
I never said anything about those kinds of
healthy.
people. All I said was Ryan Presley looks like he works at a deli, and I hope he has a chance to save the game tonight, and I hope he blows it. I hope Adelise Garcia, who they hit on purpose, by the way, they absolutely hit on purpose in that Game 5.
I don't know about that.
I don't want to hear that, it wasn't intentional. He had
Big
every
grand
right
slam
to get,
last night, though.
Yeah,
that was a shut-up moment.
He had every right to be angry. I think the Astros were planning on folding in that game, and, of course, a little Jose Altuve saves him again.
Little Jose
Altuve saves him again.
Buzzing today.
I wonder if he took his shirt off, if maybe he had another buzzer on his chest.
No, his wife doesn't like that. His wife does not like when he takes his shirt off. Remember that.
This absolutely sounds like sour grapes right now. Listen, boy, I love you and everything, man, but like, even as a Yankee fan myself, you got to get over it, right? Like, you talk about the average MLB fan, most baseball fans do not care about the Astros. The only ones who care are Yankee fans and Dodger fans because we were screwed over during the cheating times. Otherwise, like, there's no reason to hate the Astros. I mean, I get your point that, like, it's good for baseball to have a villain there, but at the end of the day, like, do you think that Brewers fans hate the Astros? Do you think that D-backs fans hate the Astros? Of course not, because they never had to deal with the Astros during that time. They probably hate them because they've won World Series and maybe they've lost a couple games in big moments to them. But, like, there's no chance to me that the Phillies fans hate the Astros for
Philly
anything
fans will
other
find
than
a way to
just
hate
losing.
anything.
Yeah, for just losing in last year's World Series. They don't hate them for the cheating scandal.
So let me ask this. Let's go around the room here. Team more likely to not get to the World Series? Astros or Phillies? Phillies up 3-2. That game's about to get underway at the top of the hour. Is it more likely that the Phillies don't get to the World Series up 3-2 or the Astros don't get back to the World Series with a Game 7 today?
There is zero chance the Phillies lose 2 games in a row at home.
I agree. And they're 12-2 at home in the last 2 postseasons. Those only 2 losses came to Boyle's favorite team, the Houston Astros. I think tonight I give the slight edge to the Astros, but it wouldn't shock me if the Rangers win. I don't see how the Phillies lose 2 games at home. And if so, could you imagine that scene in Philadelphia where you have a team that's dancing on their own? They're convinced they're going to the World Series, and they're a heck of a team. I said this back in July when they were struggling. I go, until the Phillies are out, they're a force to be reckoned with Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, Wheeler, a stud, Nola coming into his own and getting more consistent. And the Phillies, I say this as a Met fan, they're actually a likable team. They're a fun group of personalities. They kind of remind me of like 04 Red Sox vibes, where the Red Sox called themselves the idiots. This team just has fun. And as a fan, it's fun to watch, even though it's a team that I usually hate in the Phillies. I don't see the Phillies lose these next 2 games. Are you a Diamondbacks fan, just wondering? Because you lived in Arizona, Samter.
They're like my 3rd or 4th favorite team. Like, I like them because I was there and like I knew people who were on the team and I knew people within the organization. But I really don't care about the Diamondbacks.
So, are you with us that there's no way the Phillies lose one of these next 2, both these next 2 games?
No. I think that, especially in the playoffs, and listen, as a Yankee fan, I've seen the Arizona Diamondbacks do things that they're not supposed to do when it comes to playoff baseball. So I'm never going to count the D-backs out. Luis Gonzalez will forever be in my bleep list.
Going back to the early 2000s.
Yeah,
and you're trying to lecture Boyle for holding a grudge about something that happened a few years ago.
No, I'm not holding a grudge. I'm just, Luis Gonzalez is a whole other story. But the D-backs could win 2 straight. I don't see it happening, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did. I mean, it's playoff
I'd be
baseball.
Stunned.
It's playoff baseball.
I'd be stunned.
Anything
in that
can
building,
happen.
they're 12-2 in the last 2 postseasons. And they didn't lose to one National League team. It was an American League team. Anyway, let's get to Arch Manning, or as some would say here on CBS Sports Radio, Arch Manning. You could figure out who that person is. But anyway, Arch Manning, this was something that's been talked about before the season. You knew that Quinn Ewers was going to be the starting quarterback. And it was Fozzie Whitaker who said this to me in the summer. People don't realize how much they like Malik Murphy. And Malik Murphy is listed as number 2 on the depth chart. So I said to Fozzie, last year we did see Arch Manning get hurt. Quinn Ewers get hurt. And if he gets hurt again or isn't good enough, is that going to be the coach staying true to the depth chart? So now after the weekend when Quinn Ewers suffers a shoulder injury and he's week to week and isn't going to play this weekend, it's reiterated that Murphy's number 2 on the depth chart, but there was positive comments being said about the way that Arch Manning has been performing in practice. So I just wonder here, how long of a leash does Murphy have here? And I don't know when Quinn Ewers is going to come back, but this is almost going to be Tebow-esque. And I know that Manning is, from an NFL projection, is going to be a whole lot better, is supposed to be a whole lot better than Tebow was in the pros. We just all knew Tebow was an all-time great college football quarterback, was never going to be a great pro. But you remember the Tebow fans that just infiltrated all these stadiums and tried to get Tim Tebow on the field. The moment Murphy makes a mistake for Texas, those fans in Texas are going to be calling for Arch Manning. Because whether you're a knowledgeable football fan or not, we all are intrigued off the curiosity of what Arch Manning could be with how much he's been shoved right in front of our TV screens in high school, the recruiting process, and even when he's not playing right now. And I think the way that Sark navigates those waters is going to be fascinating, especially if Quinn Ewers misses a significant amount of time. Boy, let me ask you this. How do you think Sark is going to handle that? Because it's one thing to stay true to your depth chart, but the moment your quarterback doesn't play well, or you lose a game, or you throw an interception, the moment there's an opening, those Texas Longhorn fans are going to want to turn the baton over to Manning.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think they're home against BYU this weekend.
Yeah, on ABC too, national television.
17.5-point favorites. I think if they are tied or trailing at halftime, maybe you see that decision happen because they obviously can't afford another loss the rest of the season, even if they want to have a chance to make the college football playoff and the Big 12 championship. So, we'll see. I think if they are, even if Murphy's not looking great, but they have a lead at the half, you probably don't see Arch Manning touch the field. But if they're trailing at halftime, it's a big decision that Sark's going to have to make.
And also, let's be real, too. For Malik Murphy, this is an audition. With how highly touted he is, even though he gets lost in the shuffle of Ewers and Manning, you play well here. I'm not saying you'll get the job next year. We all know Sark has to go to Manning next year. But with the transfer portal, you'll be able to name your NIL price at another SEC school, or, with Texas leaving the Big 12, the SEC, or another big school around the country, even if it's outside the SEC. So this is a big audition spot here for Malik Murphy, and I think the fan reaction is going to be fascinating. All righty, we'll get to onside, offside next. First up, latest CBS Sports Radio update. Here's the Act Check-in.
CBS Sports Radio.
Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive makes bundling easy and affordable. Get a multi-policy discount by combining your motorcycle, RV, boat, ATV, and more. All your protection in one place. Bundle and save at Progressive.com. The Eagles have the best record in the NFC right now and are patching up one area of concern, reportedly acquiring two-time Pro Bowl safety Kevin Byard from the Titans for Terrell Edmonds and 2 late-round picks in 2024. The Broncos' Kareem Jackson ejected yesterday for a hit that was deemed dirty and now suspended 4 games by the league for repeated violations of unnecessary roughness rules. Week 7 of the NFL season concludes with the Vikings and 49ers in Minnesota. Deebo Samuel out with a shoulder injury, and Trent Williams is doubtful with a sprained ankle, but Christian McCaffrey is good to go despite an oblique injury. The NLCS between the Phillies and the Diamondbacks is about to begin shortly. The Phils up 3-2 and send Aaron Nola to the mound. He's unbeaten in this postseason and will go up against Merrill Kelly. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Radio. CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, at home, in your car, and of course on your phone and tablet. Find us on your local affiliate, SiriusXM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio.
All right, a little onside, offside action right here on CBS Sports Radio. Big Mike, CBS, what you got cooking up for me today?
All right, well, the first one, we'll start with the Chicago Bears. They are 1-13 in the last 14 games started by Justin Fields. But after just one start, undrafted rookie quarterback Tyson Bagent has his one win under his belt, completing 72% of his passes with a touchdown strike in Chicago's 30-12 win over Stu's Vegas Raiders. That's why Stu's not here today. He could not handle the embarrassment of losing to the Bears. Onside, offside, the Bears should give Bagent a shot to win the starting gig even when Fields returns.
Oh, no, this is the easiest offside ever.
Offside!
And what a shot of Pat Boyle that we have right now on the stream. I just see Boyle's, chest, and I don't know what you're eating. What are you devouring right now? What are you stuffing your face with? I won't say fat face because you're not fat, but what are you stuffing your face with?
A rib.
A rib? We have ribs in the newsroom?
Well, our pal Sean Marash, formerly Mraz, I think brought some ribs today.
Did he?
I think so. That's what one of the other guys in the newsroom is assuming.
Okay. Now,
they're okay.
Smoked.
They're very okay.
The Bayou Bear, the great Bayou Bear, smoked me ribs once. So if those are his ribs, I got to go stuff my fat face during the break. But to answer Samter's question, I thought Samter was running out of the newsroom. He's just adjusting Pat Boyle's camera. I thought he was going to get some ribs. The Bears should give Bagent a start to win the starting gig even when Fields returns. No. You got to play Justin Fields because we all know this organization's moving on from Justin Fields after this year. So you got to keep on having him on the field to provide some positive moments like he did up against the Commanders to make me say, alrighty, I'm a team like the Falcons or someone else looking for a quarterback. I now got to give up some draft capital to go acquire Justin Fields this offseason. So when Fields is back, when Fields is ready to go, you absolutely play him. Alrighty, let's get to the next question here. Samter, what do we got here? Question number 2.
All right, the Packers fell to just 2-5 after an embarrassing loss to the struggling Broncos. Jordan Love had just 47 yards passing in the first half, but is on pace for a respectable 3,600 yards and 28 touchdowns this season. So onside, offside, you still have faith that Jordan Love can be the Packers' long-term franchise quarterback?
I wouldn't say I have a ton of faith. I do believe it's an unknown, but with what I've seen so far, outside of that comeback that he had at home in their home opener when they were down 17 points and he put up 18 points there in the fourth quarter and had that crazy touchdown, which was more of a great catch by Romeo Doubs. I haven't seen a lot of great moments. And when you lose to the Denver Broncos and your offense does not have a lot of pop up against the Broncos defense, which on paper is supposed to be a good defense, but has been embarrassing, and they're already talking about firing the defensive coordinator in Vance Joseph, that is a cause for concern. So I can't say that I'm totally out on Jordan Love, but I can't say I have faith in him that I know that he's going to be the Packers' long-term franchise quarterback. So for that reason, it's a no for me, dog. I'll go offside.
Offside.
Number 3.
Now, the Rams fell to the Steelers in a tight game, and Matthew Stafford struggled, completing just 48% of his passes with one touchdown. However, on the season, Stafford is third in the league with 1,900 yards through the air. So onside, offside, Matthew Stafford still has 2 or 3 good years of football left in him.
So I was watching that game. It's crazy that Puka Nacua is still being this dominant wide receiver with Cooper Kupp back. And Tutu Atwell has also been a solid wide receiver to a point where they even traded Van Jefferson and said, we don't really have a spot for you. I need to see more out of Cooper Kupp because this team won't get back to being really good until they start going more to Cooper Kupp. But Puka Nacua has been a nice surprise here in the NFL. No one was talking about him before the start of the season. But to get to the question, Matthew Stafford still has 2 or 3 years left of good football in him. I don't think so, because I think a lot of people in that organization, like McVay, like Aaron Donald, and also Stafford, they have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Stafford dealt with the bad injury during the offseason as well. And I don't think we're going to see that be consistently a good team for the next 2 to 3 years. So if the team is not playing at a good level for the next 2 to 3 years, Stafford will have some struggling moments as well. So I will go offside when you ask me if Matthew Stafford still has 2 or 3 good years left of football in him.
Offside.
What I'm saying, too, is I don't think he's that far away from retiring as well. All righty, what do we got?
Now, speaking of the Steelers, star TJ Watt leads the NFL with 8 sacks, and they had the crucial interception late in Pittsburgh's win, while the Browns' Myles Garrett added 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a blocked field goal to his monster resume. Now, you spoke yesterday to Denzel Ward, and you asked him if, how good Myles Garrett is and what he could actually do this season. Here's what Denzel Ward said.
Boyle stuffing his face with too many ribs. Let's go.
Most dominant player out there. So Man, he's huge for our team, huge in getting this victory and our future victories that we're going to get. So, man, he's just a special player. I can't say enough about Miles.
You said MVP. There's one thing to win Defensive Player of the Year. Do you think there should be a case for most valuable player in the entire NFL?
Oh, no question, no question. He definitely deserves it. He's showing that week in and week out.
So onside, offside, Myles Garrett will win DPOY this season.
It's going to be a great conversation because we thought Micah Parsons was going to be right in that conversation. I think this is now a two-dog race, and it's inside the AFC North where Steelers fans hate Browns fans and Browns fans hate Steelers fans. I give the slight edge to T.J. Watt because T.J. Watt with his Steelers outplayed the Cleveland Browns where Myles Garrett did not have a good showing. Both these players are dominant. Right now, I believe by a half sack, Watt edges out Myles Garrett and also the interceptions too. But I will say that Watt is the Defensive Player of the Year, and he will just edge out Myles Garrett in what's going to be an incredible race. So you ask me, Myles Garrett win Defensive Player of the Year this season, I will say offside.
Offside.
But yesterday was just ridiculous what Myles
He's
Garrett
just unbelievable. And just that block kick, they even called it before the game. They were just like, he's going to block a kick in this game.
He's an athletic freak.
He's
and it's crazy how we've all forgotten about him swinging helmets. And who was the guy that he went after? Was it Mason Rudolph? Yeah, it was Mason Rudolph, which was one of the wildest things I've ever seen when I was doing post-game for Sirius XM NFL Radio. I'll never forget this. I went to the bathroom right before we went on the air, and they go, "You just missed the melee." And luckily they ran back the tape for me, and I was able to see it in the moment. But that was just wild, absolutely wild.
Now, after Ohio State dispatched Penn State, you talked a lot about that in James Franklin. The top four teams remain the same, with Georgia, Michigan, the Buckeyes, and Florida State leading the way. Washington escaped with a shocking upset attempt by my ASU Sun Devils, who are terrible and should not have been anywhere close to that game.
Your ASU Sun Devils.
That's where I was. And
Did
Oklahoma,
you go to the college? Where'd you go to school?
I went to school in Boston University, but there's no football team, and I lived in Arizona long enough, so
like I'm a
ASU's
Temple
my
football
team.
fan. I've adopted Michigan because my two best friends went to Michigan.
There you go. And they are terrible. They should not have been anywhere near that. And Oklahoma survived a 2-point conversion to beat UCF. So onside, offside, the top four teams in the rankings right now will be the four playoff teams.
Which is Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Florida State. Well, you have two Big Ten teams in there. I got to think Florida State's going to win out and get in. We'll see what happens with the Big 12. If Oklahoma doesn't drop a game, they'll get in. And whoever wins the Pac-12 should get in. There's an argument to be made if any conference could have two teams get in, it will be the Big Ten. But I think either Michigan or Ohio State will be on the outside looking in. And both right now, both of them are in the top four. And I think it will be Ohio State that falls to Michigan. So you ask me, the top four teams in the ranking right now will be the four playoff teams. I go offside.
Offside.
And finally.
All right, so last one. We'll make this pretty quick. After Penix Jr. had a terrible game against my Sun Devils, J.J. McCarthy took the lead in Heisman odds, followed by Penix, Jaden Daniels, Jordan Travis, and Oklahoma's Dylan Gabriel. So onside, offside, J.J. McCarthy will win the Heisman Trophy.
I said this after week one of the college football season, that everyone's talking about Shedeur Sanders, everyone's talking about Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams. J.J. McCarthy will win the Heisman because I think they're running the table. I think they're winning the Big Ten. And they have so many weapons at Michigan. Corum's their best offensive player, but with how many weapons they have, he won't put up the numbers that he did last year. And they're going to try to protect Corum too and spread out the ball as well because unfortunately he got hurt. The benefactor from that's going to be the quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, who is ready to break out. Now, he has to dominate Penn State. He has to dominate Ohio State to win the award. But I think he's going to do that in the remaining games. So, yes, right now I would say it's the right call that J.J. McCarthy is the Heisman favorite, and I do believe he'll win the award. So onside. All righty, we'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. When we come on back, Lions and Dolphins, they fall back. They show they're human with their performances up against the Ravens and Eagles. How much of a belief do you still have with those two teams? We discussed 60 more minutes to play. Zach Gelb Show right here, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
And away we go, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So there are a few big reactions from yesterday in the NFL. clearly the Buffalo Bills, another horrible loss by Buffalo, where you're going up against a lifeless, anemic Patriot team, and you started to give the Patriots, I don't want to say hope, but signs of looking like they have something on the offensive side of the ball, which I have not seen all throughout the season. So we talked about Buffalo for pretty much a large portion of this show. I'm saying they need some sizzle. They need some pop. Brandon B needs to be aggressively working the phones from now until Halloween with the NFL trade deadline, and he needs to go acquire a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley as well, because this Bills team right now, there's so much negativity, and it's pointing to a direction where they're only going to regress. And you look at this Buffalo Bills team, they were in an AFC title game. Then the year after that, 13-second blunder up against the Chiefs in the divisional round. Terrible coaching decision by Sean McDermott. And then last year, yeah, you could beat Kansas City in the regular season, but then come playoff time trying to exact revenge, you didn't even get to a matchup with Kansas City because the Bengals come walking in after, let's be real, a wild card weekend performance that left a lot to be desired, where you're going up against Skylar Thompson. And remember, Mike McDaniel looked like he was hitting the vape pen on the sideline, and you almost lost that game. And the Bengals walked in, and they parked their rear on your couch. They went into your fridge. They ate your sandwich. They drank your beer, and they threw a party in your own home in Buffalo. And going into the season, people were out on the Bills, but we all said, oh, the Bills are a good team. You just didn't believe they could get over the hump. Now they're in danger of no longer being a good team. Like, luckily for them, the AFC is not as strong to the level that we thought it was going to be. But I don't think the Bills are winning this division. I think it's going to be Miami. And then you got to be one of the 3 teams remaining to make the wild card. Now, they should be a wild card team. Josh Allen should be able to carry them to the wild card, but that play calling is atrocious. Outside of Allen to Diggs, you don't have a ton on offense. At least Dalton Kincaid got going last week. And you're missing 2 big pieces on the defensive side of the ball. Unfortunately, Tre'Davious White's career has been impacted by injury. And Matt Milano, who's a phenomenal linebacker, actually from my hometown of Comac, he's now done too. So this team needs an extra player. This team needs some excitement, because what we've seen ever since beating the Dolphins has been a team where they finally got some praise, and then they started to trend in the wrong direction, where they knew that Miami game was big because they were sick and tired. Even though they were 2-1 in their last 3 matchups up against the Dolphins, people talking more impressed they are with the Dolphins than they were with the Buffalo Bills. Because remember, in that Tua game, the Dolphins won in Miami, but in the other 2 were close games, Buffalo won. And everyone, including myself, thought Miami was going to win that game and Miami was going to dominate. And then it was the Bills that opened up a serious performance and really smacked up the Miami Dolphins. But with that being said, just because you have an early season beatdown, that doesn't define your season. Because for the Bills going into this season, we all said there's not going to be a whole lot they could do to really impress us, because it's all about getting the job done in the postseason. Giving us one singular moment that you could impress us in the regular season needs to be followed up. And their last 3 games, they have now trended in the wrong direction, where you lose to Jacksonville and you give us that bullcrap excuse of, oh, we were jet lagged. Then you barely beat the Giants. You need the help of the officials to get you out of that game in Orchard Park with the victory. But yesterday was the worst loss of them. Because this Patriot team, like, at least you could tell me with Buffalo going up against the Giants, oh, Brian Daboll knows you in and out, knows Josh Allen in and out. The Patriots are a pathetic team this year. And you allow that lasting image be Mac Jones and Mike Gesicki dancing all over your grave? That's a bad job by Buffalo. So it's doom and gloom for the Bills right now. And it's how can you get this team to get a little jolt of energy? And they play Tampa Thursday, short week. So maybe it's good that you're in a short week. And then you play the Bengals the week after that. You go beat the Bengals. That's a nice victory for you. But both those teams having question marks. But I think they need another dominant player on the offensive side of the ball. And that's why I've been advocating for the Buffalo Bills to go make a trade for Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, who, even though reports would say that it's not the truth, I do think both players are available. Doesn't make any point right now to say that they're available. From now until the trade deadline next week on October 31st, you just have to give up something. Don't make a dumb mistake here, because you never know how long the window's open. Brandon Beane has to be aggressive here. So let's put aside the Buffalo Bills, and then let's react to the Detroit Lions just getting dominated by the Baltimore Ravens. And also the Miami Dolphins at times getting back in the game, but the Eagles showing that they're a better team. Let me start off with the positive, then we'll get into the negative. Philadelphia is a team that is 6-1, and they haven't even played their best brand of football yet. And that's a scary thing. We saw the Eagles last year run through the NFC, run through football, and walk to the Super Bowl where they had a lead up against Kansas City, and then Patrick Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes things. But last night, you saw how great this defense has been for the Eagles and what it can be with Hassan Reddick coming off the edge. And Hassan Reddick is now back. He was all over the field on Sunday Night Football. And that's what makes the Eagles scary. Sure, Jalen Hurts is definitely dealing with something. Jalen Hurts is definitely dealing with an injury. But look how many ways the Eagles could beat you. They could pound you in the run game behind the best offensive line in football. They could beat you up with DeAndre Swift and Kenneth Gainwell. And then, on the offensive side of the ball, you got Dallas Goedert, who had a big game. You got A.J. Brown, who's a stud, who I still can't believe Tennessee traded him 2-3 years ago. You got Devontae Smith, who's a really good wide receiver. You just have playmaker after playmaker. And you have such a loaded, deep team. And Jalen Hurts, he is an electric football player. Sure, he can make mistakes. And it cost him a touchdown in the Super Bowl. It cost him a touchdown last night. But he's just a dog, Jalen Hurts. And the defensive side of the ball, they got even more loaded today with the trade that they made. They are just getting Byard from Tennessee. They're just a dominant football team. And that's why when people were nitpicking with the Eagles earlier in the season, oh, they're winning, but they're not winning with style. When did style points ever matter in the NFL? They don't matter. No one looks by like how you win in the NFL, just do you win? And to come off a Super Bowl loss, how many times do we see teams just fall off? That's not been the Eagles this year. They're humming at 6-1 from a record standpoint, and they haven't even played the best version of themselves. They're the best team in the NFC right now. They are the best team. Like the 49ers are being hit with the injury bug right now. 49ers damn good. The Lions, we'll get to them in a second. As much praise I gave Detroit all throughout last week, Detroit was embarrassing. And it was dumbfounding how Detroit didn't show up in that game. But give credit to the Eagles and also give credit to the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. Because that Ravens team has been torn down. That Ravens team has been maligned. And no one believed in this Ravens team going into this year. Because it was like all the players they were bringing in, they all have injury past. As long as Lamar Jackson is healthy, as long as number 8 is on the field and he's standing out upright, the Ravens could beat anyone in football this year. Because the Ravens have a damn good defense. And then on the offensive side of the ball, look at the way that Lamar just took over that game yesterday. Look at the way where he made sure that the Lions threw in the towel at halftime, going and getting 4 touchdowns before the end of the first half. He had 4 total touchdowns in the game. The way he stopped on a dime, running around, extending the play, making garbage out of gold, and then firing a touchdown to Nelson Aguilar was one of my favorite plays of the NFL season. And Mark Andrews, that dude just continues to be a stud week in and week out. So give credit to the Eagles, give credit to the Ravens. The Ravens right now, through the first 7 weeks of the season, they are asserting themselves as the second best team in the AFC. Everyone in the AFC is chasing Kansas City. And Kansas City, just like the Eagles, still hasn't played their best brand of football. And I believe Kansas City's offense can get to a higher level than what they're putting on the field. And the thing that no one's talking about Kansas City is their defense is showing up this year. Their defense is playing this year. And their defense has saved that team multiple times. Just go back and look at the Jacksonville game. That offense didn't play well for Kansas City up against the Jaguars. And you had a Kansas City team hold Jacksonville to 3 field goals to make it 9 points. But getting to the two teams that went down yesterday. Two teams that have been hyped up a lot, the Miami Dolphins and the Detroit Lions. Dolphins going to be an in-season Hard Knocks. That was announced today by the NFL. What are your expectations for these teams the rest of the way? I look at Miami. Their offense is as good as any offense in the league. Last night, they weren't able to protect Tua. That's a problem. But throughout the year, that offensive line has been really good. Tyreek Hill is one of the more feared and explosive players in football. That defense, it was good to see Jalen Phillips make a play because now he's back. You need him to be dominant. Jalen Phillips may be the biggest key this year for the Dolphins if they're able to get to a Super Bowl. Because you know what Tua's going to do if healthy. You know what Tyreek Hill is capable of. I know Waddle's dealing with an injury too. Mostert's a stud. You can put any running back in there, and you'll eventually get back Achane, and you got Jalen Ramsey, who was getting into it with Eagles fans. He's supposed to come back, and now he has 21 days to get to the active roster coming off the injury list. But Jalen Phillips, what Hassan Reddick did for the Eagles last year is what Jalen Phillips could do for the Dolphins this year. And you need him to be healthy, and you need him to be great. This Dolphins team, though, they're going to be a playoff team. They should win the AFC East. They could get to a Super Bowl, but they got to start beating some teams. Because the teams that they've beat this year, they have not been considered great teams. Like you beat the Chargers. The Chargers aren't making the playoffs as long as Staley's still the coach. You beat the Patriots. They stink. Yeah, you put up 70 points against the Broncos. Impressive, incredible, but Denver stinks. Against a Buffalo team that's not even looking like a good team this year, you lost 48-20. Beat the Giants, beat the Panthers, two bad football teams, and up against the Philadelphia Eagles, you lose 31-17. So the questions are going to come, can Miami beat the elite teams? And you have one more, actually you have a few more opportunities to show that this year. Yeah, you'll crush New England next week. Then you play Kansas City in Germany. Let's see if you get the job done up against Kansas City. You know, there's no statements to be made against the Raiders, the Jets, Washington, Tennessee, the Jets again, even Dallas. Dallas, a good team, not a great team. But then you end the season with Baltimore and Buffalo. And those could be some appetizers for the teams that you're going to face come postseason time. So if Miami really wants to just show that they're not only a good team, but they could be a great team, you got to take 2 out of 3 against Kansas City, Baltimore, and Buffalo, depending on how much the Baltimore and Buffalo games mean in the final 2 weeks of the season. Now, as for the Lions, bad loss for the Lions yesterday. They didn't even show up. But with the Lions, it shows this. Home field advantage is going to be enormous for them. And I know their previous loss did come at home in overtime where Tyler Lockett walked it off for the Seattle Seahawks up against the Detroit Lions. But Jared Goff in not the greatest conditions yesterday, outside of a dome, that offense did not look good. I know more of yesterday is the statement from Lamar, the statement from the Ravens, and the coming out party for the Ravens in the year of 2023. This Detroit Lions team, there will be questions about them because similarly to the Miami Dolphins, you'll look at them and you'll say who they beat. And sure, the Lions beat the Chiefs, but it was without Kelsey. It was also without Chris Jones. You lose to Seattle. You beat Atlanta. Atlanta won the NFC South, in my opinion, but they're not this great team. You beat Green Bay. They're not good. You beat the Panthers. They're not good. You know, Tampa Bay could be the team that wins the NFC South if it's not Atlanta, but it's not as if Tampa Bay is this consistent, well-rounded football team, and you lost to the Ravens. The problem for the Lions is if you don't think they could win a Super Bowl, I don't think any game on the rest of their schedule is going to make you believe it until they're actually in the Super Bowl. Because the rest of the way, they play the Raiders, they play the Chargers, they still have the Bears twice, you play Green Bay, you play New Orleans, you play Denver, Minnesota twice, and the Cowboys. When your best remaining opponents are the Cowboys and the Chargers, there's not a lot that you could do. So win the games that you're expected to win. And I'm not saying you have to win every week. They are expected to win all these games throughout the rest of the season. But go get home field advantage, go win 13, 14 games, and have Detroit rocking. So let's look at expectations for the rest of the year. Guys, I'll ask you this. Let me start with you, Boyle. What's a successful season the rest of the way for the Miami Dolphins, in your opinion?
Successful?
Yes.
Would be to win the AFC East and make the... I would say successful is to make the AFC Championship game.
Okay. Samter, what's a successful season for the Dolphins the rest of the way?
I would agree with that. I think if they lose in the divisional round and it's a tight game,
It matters
they show
how
that
they
they
lose.
belong, and maybe it's on the road in Kansas City or something, then you can still walk away as a Dolphin fan happy. But I think with what the expectations are now, I think expectations are tempered. The two teams that they went against, like you've said, that were good, the Eagles and the Bills. They
And I
got
can't even
crushed by
call the Bills good right now.
True, but like at the time, we all thought the Bills were maybe their best competition. They haven't shown up in like the biggest games, and they were okay against the Eagles, but that game wasn't as close as the score made it seem, at least in the first half. So I think that I'm tempering expectations a little bit more, but I would say divisional round for sure. AFC Championship game would be like a success.
So
absolute
I'm
success.
with Boyle. I think they got to win the division. They got to get to an AFC title game. Because Kansas City's the only team, without question, that's better than them. You know, I do think after yesterday you make the case for the Ravens. But if your best competition in your way is the Ravens, the Bills, like the Bengals, if they get their act together, you know, the Jaguars. If you're that good of a team, you should be able to get to an AFC title game. And then you lose to Kansas City, you lose to Kansas City. Now, how about the Lions? Team that has not won their division since 93. They're going to do that this year. They haven't won a playoff game since 1991. Boyle, I'll ask you the same question. What's a successful year for the Detroit Lions?
They have to win the division, which it looks like by
That's
all,
a lock.
Yeah, well, not a lock. We think that
Who else do you buy stock in that division?
What you say?
Who else do you buy stock in that division?
Definitely not Green Bay.
Definitely not Minnesota.
Definitely not Chicago.
I would say
it's a lock.
I would say Minnesota. If Justin Jefferson comes back in 3 weeks, and they're not going to win tonight, I wouldn't say. But you know, you look at the rest of their schedule: at the Packers, at the Falcons versus the Saints, at the Broncos versus the Bears, at the Raiders. Those are the next 6 games after that. If they can win 4 of those,
they're 2-4.
Yeah,
you know they're losing.
They easily
tonight.
could be 6-6 in 6-7 weeks from now. And Justin Jefferson comes back, and they get on a run.
The Lions are going to have 10, 11 wins by Thanksgiving.
I don't think Detroit. Again, I'm not fully buying stock. I think they win the division. I'm not saying it's a lock, though. I'm not saying it's an absolute guarantee. They have to win the division.
You can lock it up.
Successful for them then would be to get to the divisional round, which they would have to win 1 playoff game. They're not better than the Eagles. They're not better than the 49ers. So I don't see them beating either of those teams in the playoffs, and they're going to get one of them if they get to the divisional round.
Samter, your success for the Lions is what? Same as Boyle?
Same thing. Divisional round, you have to win a playoff game. You have to win a playoff game.
Yeah, if they don't win a playoff game, now Lomas Brown said that to me for the start of the season. And I thought he was crazy. I thought just make the playoffs, that's a successful season. Now expectations have changed, where yes, the Eagles and the 49ers still expect to get to the NFC Championship game. I know the Lions really haven't beat anyone outside of Kansas City, but without their 2 players, if you're not in the divisional round, yeah, that's gonna be really miserable for Detroit
It's also because
fans.
of that franchise, because they haven't won a playoff game in so long that they're just itching for it. So like if they walk away with all this hype and all these expectations and they don't win a playoff game, as good as this team is, it's going to be considered one of the biggest disappointments I can imagine for this fan base in a long time.
They have 10 games remaining. So Raiders, Chargers, Bears twice, Green Bay, New Orleans, Denver, Minnesota, Dallas, Minnesota. They got to go against those. I'm saying 8-2 against those teams in those 10 games. 7-3 at most. This should be a football team where you're only looking at 3 or 4 losses. So only have 3 or 4 losses, and then also you got to get to the divisional round and show up in the divisional round too. All right, we'll take a break. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We'll get to a no-huddle offense next.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
If you need more proof that Jimbo Fisher should be fired, and Jimbo Fisher is the most overrated coach in the country, the only reason he still has a job is because of the $70 million buyout. But if you're a fan of A&M, that passionate fan base, you got to be demanding, you got to be imploring the boosters to pay and buy him out at the end of the year. Because the last 2 years, he's had really good rosters, and he's had really bad results.
Here's Zach Gelb.
You can stream the NFL on the Westwood One app for free, sponsored by AutoZone all season long. You can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. All righty, let's get to a Week 7 edition of No Huddle Offense.
Touchdowns, sacks, upsets, and last-minute heroics. Another NFL Sunday is in the books, and we've got you covered with the biggest plays and sound bites from another wild week in the National Football League. It's time for No Huddle Offense on the Zach Gelb Show.
Let's start it off at MetLife Stadium, where the New York Football Giants were hosting the Washington Commanders. Commanders entered this game 3-3. The Giants entered this game 1-5. And it was the Giants who found the way behind a Darren Waller and Saquon Barkley touchdown to get 14 points. The Commanders are only able to put up 7 points on the scoreboard. One did come off the legs of Brian Robinson Jr. Sam Howell in the game, 22 of 42, 249 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. He was also sacked 6 times as he continues to get abused by opposing teams' defenses. Dexter Lawrence, Sexy Dexy, had 2 sacks in the game, and even Kayvon Thibodeau, who has been disappointing so far in his first 2 years in the NFL, he did have a sack and a half. But the story for the Giants, Saquon Barkley, 77 rushing yards, 3 catches, 41 yards, and this touchdown. Let's listen up to the Giants Radio Network.
Taylor over center, play fake, back to throw. Steps up, dumps it underneath, completes it to Barkley, runs out of a tackle. He's to the 10, he's to the 5, he's in for the touchdown! Saquon from 32 yards out, and the Giants take the lead 13-0. They haven't scored a first-half touchdown all year. They've got 2 here in the first half.
So look at that. The Giants haven't scored a first-half touchdown all year until yesterday where they scored 2. And Danny Dimes, well, he wasn't there for the Giants yesterday dealing with the injuries. Maybe touchdown Tyrod should be their starter moving forward. That's not going to be the case. But he did have a game of 18 of 29, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns. And you can make a case, and it shows you how abysmal and how dull this offense has been, that the Giants' offense has looked better under Tyrod Taylor than Daniel Jones. Because outside of the second half up against the Arizona Cardinals, this Giants' offense under Daniel Jones has been terrible this year. So this week, you have a big game in New York. It's Jets and Giants. If Daniel Jones is cleared to go, and it was expected he's going to make his return for this Jet game, that was the chatter before the game, Brian Daboll has an interesting decision to make. I do think they'll go back to Daniel Jones. You paid Daniel Jones, and we know Tyrod Taylor's just a journeyman quarterback. But if Daniel Jones comes back and he gets abused by this great Jet defense and he doesn't play well, it's going to be a tough 24, 48 hours for Daniel Jones. And I would advise him not to turn on the radio, especially in New York. Let's go to Lions and the Ravens. What a dominant victory for the Ravens. They're up 28-0 at halftime, and Lamar Jackson was Superman, looked like a video game, ran around the field, extended the play, and then found Nelson Aguilar in the end zone. And you know it's a good day for the Ravens when Nelson Aguilar actually catches a football and doesn't drop it. Let's listen up. This is Jerry with the G, Jerry Sandusky on the Ravens Radio Network.
Lamar escaping the pocket, spins his way, extending to the right side. Settles his feet, lobs to the back of the end zone. Touchdown, Nelson Aguilar! And Lamar Jackson delivered for a second time in the red zone today.
The NFL MVP is going to be a fascinating discussion because each and every week, and I know it's still early in the season, I feel like there's a different name. Still the betting favorite is Patrick Mahomes at plus 250. I think Mahomes needs to have a perfect season almost for him to win the MVP, just because where the standards are and certain guys that applies to, like Tom Brady, everything had to go right for him to win the MVP. But I look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes, that offense hasn't played at the level that they're capable of. So I don't think they're going to win the MVP. I don't think he's going to win the MVP this year. If it comes down to Dolphins players, I think Tua and Tyreek Hill are going to split the vote. And I would personally go more Tyreek Hill than Tua Tagovailoa. Jalen Hurts, I know he's at plus 500, but he hasn't had a great enough season yet to warrant the MVP. And then you get Lamar Jackson at plus 750. I think that's the bet. If the Ravens win this division, which they should, and they're like the 2 seed in the AFC, and Lamar continues to do what he did yesterday, it's going to be tough not to give Lamar Jackson his second MVP trophy. Falcons and Buccaneers. The Falcons edge out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 16-13. They almost lost the game because of the incompetence of their offense. We'll get to that in just a second. But this is the game winner from Younghoe Koo, 51 yards out.
So it's a 51-yard try from Koo to win. Snap, spot, kick from Koo is away, and it is good. Fly home safely, Atlanta. 16-13 is the final in Tampa.
So I have a problem with Arthur Smith and Desmond Ridder. I don't understand the approach of Arthur Smith where he's trying to make Desmond Ridder the franchise quarterback, and he's not just playing to the team that he has. They've been throwing the football way too many times with Desmond Ridder this season, and the handling of the Bijan Robinson situation yesterday was crazy. So he was active, and he barely played in the game, and they said he wasn't feeling well. So was it an injury? Was him just being sick? The whole thing was bizarre, but even when he has Bijan Robinson, the guy doesn't utilize him the way that he should be using him. And Desmond Ridder, it's weird to me, and it's confusing to me why they're asking him to do so much, and he almost fumbled the game away yesterday. He had 3 fumbles in the red zone, 2 at the 1-yard line. Like, you fumble the ball once at the 1-yard line, it's inexcusable, but you do it twice in the same game, it's inconceivable. And then he fumbled at the 11 or 12-yard line as well. Desmond Ridder can hold back the Atlanta Falcons, but they're loaded with talent. Like, that defense, Nielsen, the defensive coordinator, has done a wonderful job in his first year replacing Dean Pease. And then you have Kyle Pitts. You got Drake London, who's having a good season. You got Bijan when he's healthy. Tyler Algier as well. Cordero Patterson. They got a lot of names there. The quarterback just has to be a game manager, but they're asking him to be more than a game manager, and that doesn't make sense. So I still think the Falcons will win the AFC South, but they're not going to win the AFC South because of Desmond Ridder and Arthur Smith. Steelers at the Rams. Steelers get a big-time victory here. These two teams are pretty even with the way that I look at them. But Najee Harris at the game-winning touchdown run. This was 3 yards out. This made it 24-17, which was the final score.
Pickett steps in, hands it off. Najee into the end zone. Pittsburgh Steelers go-ahead touchdown.
The Iron Horse, Najee, goes into the end zone. Angry man running all day, showing that strength, that power.
This is the way that the Steelers are going to win games. Their defense is going to be dominant. You saw TJ Watt with the interception. That really did change the game. And the offense just has to be okay. And that will be a Steeler brand of football where it's not going to win you a Super Bowl. It may not even win you a playoff game, but at least have you in the postseason. And Pickett was fine yesterday. Had 230 yards and a rushing touchdown. George Pickens had 5 catches for 107 yards. You get Deontay Johnson back too. You just have to be okay on offense, and you'll end up being a 9-10 win team because of how great this defense is, even without Cam Hayward still. But TJ Watt has been sensational. Right now, he's the Defensive Player of the Year, and that's a tough argument with what Myles Garrett's doing, but I think TJ Watt gets a slight edge. And then on the other side for the Rams, man, Puka Nacua continues to be a wonderful story. Cooper Kupp only had like 2 catches yesterday. Puka Nacua goes for 8 catches, 154 yards. Cooper Kupp had 2 for 29. You know, I haven't thought about this until now. It's kind of crazy that Puka Nacua is having this great first season, and he probably won't win Rookie of the Year because it's probably right now going to go to C.J. Stroud. But Puka Nacua has been a stud coming out of BYU. And finally, Chargers and Chiefs, the biggest story in the NFL right now. Will Taylor Swift be at the game? She was yesterday, having a special handshake with Brittany Mahomes as well. And you had that creep Jackson Mahomes in the background. They probably shouldn't allow him in that luxury box. But I'm not saying Brittany Mahomes is becoming likable, but it was some good content yesterday featuring Brittany Mahomes. And Travis Kelce, a National Tight Ends Day. Well, he had 12 catches for 179 yards, a touchdown. And he somehow got in the end zone here without fumbling the football on the shovel pass. Listen up.
They're going to fake a handoff. Now they're going to go on a pass inside and dragging into the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas City! And the Chiefs get the touchdown with a little bit of a formation trickery. And Kelsey, who lined up in the backfield, just ducked inside and was able to drag 3 Chargers, almost lost the ball as he had the ball up above his helmet, and the Chargers were trying to rip it out.
Now, I don't know how he got in the end zone. That was crazy without fumbling the football. So there's 2 stories here. The Chiefs are the best team in the NFL, and they still even haven't played their best brand of football. It's crazy. The 2 teams that got to the Super Bowl last year both only have a loss apiece, and they still even haven't played the best way that they're capable of. So that's scary for the rest of the NFL, as we could be on a collision course. World Series, we'll see if that happens. Arizona's just hitting 2 home runs. They're up 2-0 against the Phillies in this Game 6. But we could be on a collision course for a rematch of the World Series with the Phillies and the Astros. In the NFL, we may see a collision course rematch of a Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Eagles. On the other side, the Chargers. What else do you need to see from Brandon Staley? This guy, through the first 7 weeks of the season, has 2 wins, and they're up against the Raiders and the Vikings, who both stink. I would fire him today. There's no need to continue this. Put him out of his misery and just move on and see if you could salvage this roster that's loaded with talent, but just a team that never shows up for their head coach. That's your Week 7 No Huddle Offense. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's get the latest CBS Sports Radio update in first with the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Game 6 of the National League Championship Series, with the Diamondbacks looking to stave off elimination and force a deciding game. And right now, they're beating the Phillies at their own game. Top of the second, back-to-back home runs in this one from Tommy Pham and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. have given the Diamondbacks a 2-0 lead over Aaron Nola and the Phils. Nola has yet to lose in this postseason and has just walked a batter after giving up the home runs, so he's in a bit of trouble right now. Game 7 of the American League Championship Series tonight in Houston. The Rangers forcing the deciding game with a convincing win last night. The road team has won every game of the series thus far. Max Scherzer will look for redemption after getting hit hard in Game 3. Christian Javier starts for Houston, which will also have Brian Abreu, who will be serving his suspension next year. He is permitted to pitch tonight. The banged-up 49ers, coming off their first loss, take on the Vikings to close out Week 7. Christian McCaffrey expected to go. The Eagles reportedly acquired veteran safety Kevin Byard from the Titans for Terrell Edmonds and 2 late-round picks this spring, and the NFL suspending the Broncos' Kareem Jackson for repeated violations of unnecessary roughness rules. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Make sure you're locked in for JR Sport Brief, weeknights at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Give it a listen right here on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining.
Coming up tomorrow, coming up later on the Zach Gelb Show, we recap 49ers and Vikings plus 7-time NBA champion Robert Horry stops by. 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific.
Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Factory Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
We'll get to our Ask the Pros question of the day in just a second. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. This is a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. But we have to direct our attention to Jay in Alaska, who is on the line with us right now. I have not heard from much of Jay throughout this season, who's a big-time Raiders fan. And I know Jay is always crazy about his favorite football team, so I was starting to get worried about where the heck Jay in Alaska is, and I look to my left, and I see Jay in Alaska has popped up on the board. I would ask Jay how he's doing, but I know the answer to that question because the Raiders stink, but I'll say it anyway. Jay, what's going on, my friend?
Hey, join me. Golf clap for Mr. Josh McClown, boy. You just sealed your fate as the biggest loser in football history as a coach. And you just sealed your fate as a loser who's going to get fired. They should kick his butt out the door, throw the bag out behind him with his boy Zeegs. Just kick him to the curb. Don't even call him a cab. I mean, you start Hoyer the Destroyer. Are you freaking kidding me? The only thing that does is destroy any chance of winning the game. I mean, they should have went with AOC from the get-go. You know, they brought in the crystal chandelier that is Jimmy G, and then you bring in Hoyer the Destroyer. What a bunch of idiots. He is such a clown. The only thing that was good about yesterday's loss was he has sealed his fate as the worst coach in the NFL, and he's going to get fired.
Yeah, here's the only thing, though, Jay, where you may be wrong about, is Mark Davis had to pay off Gruden in that settlement, and you're basically then paying 3 coaches and 2 clearly aren't coaching the team. McDaniels is incompetent. McDaniels is terrible. But since this is only year 2, even though it feels like it's year 8, if you're a Raiders fan, he may get another season. And you know that could be true with how cheap Mark Davis is.
Well, you know what makes me mad, Zach, is you know me. I'm an analytical mind when it comes to football because I've coached. When they're talking about how Aiden O'Connell, he had a shaky game against the Chargers. He was driving them for the win. They're on the 3-yard line, and McClownboy calls a pass play.
Should have ran it with Jacobs.
You have Josh Jacobs. Run it in the end zone, and the game is tied, and you have a chance to go win the game.
Now Jay, let's also be fair. Jay, you're not wrong, but just going back to the game yesterday, bad look for Davante Adams, who should be annoyed that he only had 2 catches a few weeks ago. But when you had that fade and Hoyer makes somewhat of a decent throw, Adams has to catch that football yesterday. But this team is this team's a mess. This team was 3-3 before yesterday, and I'm like, wow, they could actually be 4-3. And then the world gets humbled, and the world gets reminded that your Raiders just stink.
Dude, I think honestly, I watched the game yesterday. I saw a couple plays where it looked like Max Crosby had a chance to run down the quarterback, and he just stopped running. I think the whole team has absolutely 100% given up on Josh McDaniels. I really do. I think they don't want to play for the guy. They are not going to run through a wall for him. They don't care, and they know that they suck and they have no chance of winning, so they making a business decision. Why exert myself for nothing? And I think that's what Davante did. Why kill myself for a team that's not going to win?
Well, Jay, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much for calling us as always. I always love a fiery Jay in Alaska on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I'm not going to say that the players are checking out when they're on the field, but that is a bad environment with the Raiders. They didn't reward Josh Jacobs. Now, Jacobs, right, is in and out of the lineup. Davante Adams made it clear from the start, and he tried to put the toothpaste back in the tube because he realized he revealed too much publicly. And his real feelings of this regime showed this offseason. There's just no positivity here. There's nothing. And getting rid of Derek Carr, I had no problem with. But who you replace Derek Carr with Jimmy Garoppolo, is so underwhelming. And Samter, I'm starting to get really concerned here about what the Raiders are doing to people that we work with, and then to also our fans. Like, Jay in Alaska sounds as miserable as possible. And Stu, where the heck is Stu today? Did he call out sick because he was that embarrassed to be a Raiders fan and was that disappointed with what his Raiders did? Because I woke up today and I got a message from our bosses that he got boiled today. And I'm like, what the heck happened to Stu? Nothing against Pat. We love Pat. But Stu is out today, and I think he has a little Raider flu.
It's certainly a possibility, but Stu, like me with the Jets, has been through so much worse than what he's going through right now with the Raiders that I'd be surprised if this was the moment that broke him.
Well, Stu did text me today.
Uh-oh, what did he say?
He goes, just want to let you know, not going to be in today. I think they may have already told you. I blame the Raiders or his girlfriend for why he's not in work today.
Oh, interesting. The fact that he threw the "or" in there.
Well, he made it clear that his girlfriend's been a little bit under the weather the last few days. But he said the Raiders first. So I think he wanted to throw the Raiders under the bus and then try to just throw in the girlfriend in at the end of the conversation.
Yeah, I think the Raiders probably weakened his immune system, and the girlfriend actually got the final blow in there.
Jeez. That just doesn't sound right.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Pat Boyle has a twisted mind like me. He thought the same thing as well.
I'm sure many of our listeners are in the same boat as you guys.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I would say, Boyle, do you care to comment? But I feel like you give a mouse a cookie, he wants a glass of milk, and I just don't trust that Boyle will be able to keep what Boyle wants to say in his system. So I am just going to prevent from turning over the baton to Pat Boyle because I want to make sure the final 3 minutes go as great as they can so I don't get any calls from management saying, what the heck are you trying to do? How are you trying to sink this ship here on CBS Sports Radio? So anyway, it's time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Mike in Minneapolis says, Zach, with the Vikings playing tonight, do you think this is the final season for Kirk Cousins with Skull Nation. You could think O'Reilly Auto Parts for your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. I think so. Remember, the Vikings were supposed to regress this year. We didn't think the Viking ship would capsize, but that's what transpired now. You have your first-round pick, so utilize that first-round pick with the head coach who's just going to be wrapping up year number 2 in Kevin O'Connell. You also have a new GM as well, second year in Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. It's going to be tough to replace Kirk Cousins, but he's not a great quarterback. He's not a guy that you look at and say, that's our franchise quarterback. I believe in him in the big game, and he's going to carry us and get us to a Super Bowl. So there's a chance he's back, but if they continue to be as bad as it looks like they're going to be, and they're picking in the top 5, they're picking in the top 10, I have a tough time seeing this regime not going out and getting whoever it is, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Shedeur Sanders, the LSU quarterback, and Daniels. If it's, you go through all the names, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, whoever that guy is that emerges, whoever the 4 or 5 guys that emerge to make up the first-round quarterbacks, I'd be really surprised if the Minnesota Vikings don't find a way to draft one of those quarterbacks this year. And then you usher in this new era where you still have Addison, you still got Justin Jefferson. Like, you got pieces to work with. You got to pay Jefferson. You got to fix that defense. But on offense, you need a new signal caller, and they'll get one this offseason, most likely through the draft. We'll see who plays tonight for the 49ers. We'll see if McCaffrey does play. Debo is not going to play. Also, how healthy these guys are going to be. I expect there to be a lot of points tonight. I do not like the line here. San Francisco laying 7. Don't like it either way. So my bet on this game, if I had to make one, I think there'll be some points tonight. I would take the over of 43.5, even if this could be a sloppy game. Boyle, what's your bet on this game? I know you like to post your bets all the time on the good old cesspool of Twitter or X, whatever we call it these days. San Francisco, 7-point favorite, over under 43.5. I like the over at 43.5.
Yeah, I actually am the opposite. One, as a spread, if you're going to take anything, I would take San Francisco. I just don't know how you can bet Minnesota, even without Trent Williams, even without Deebo Samuel. The 49ers defense, I think, is what stands up tonight. So if you don't like the spread on its own, I would go teaser, Niners money line, get a couple points up, and take like under 49.5.
All righty, there you go. That wraps up a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. Big thanks to Michael Samter. Big thanks to Pat Boyle, each and every one of you for calling, listening, and tweeting, also interacting in our always fun YouTube chat where we stream live each and every day. Just make sure you check out our CBS Sports Radio page on YouTube, and you can find us. And we'll be back tomorrow. Robert Horry will join us. We'll recap the game and also talk about all the latest at Michigan. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.